Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, welcome to Donna Just Being Real, the only way to be. And my channel is about dating, love, relationship, toxic relationship, and I touch on true crimes and passion as a teaching tool to help people to date smart, not thirsty. Okay, because you have a lot of people that come into your life with evil intentions, no love, no care. They just think about themselves. All right, so we're gonna get into this one here. So I'm gonna be showing a old clip here. Well, not old, but I think it's like their first week. I would say like their first week and they was in court. Oh, hold please for just a second. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry there. This was on the trial was on day 9. So I'm gonna show this one is Depp's Island estate manager testifies. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, trial day 9. Okay. So what happened on trial day 9 was the estate manager testified to things that she used to see that happened between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So let's watch it because I did watch some of it, but I wasn't able to watch all of it. So we're gonna watch it together. All right. So welcome to anybody who's coming in here, and New York Beast 360. Happy Monday to you and blessings to you, and thank you for being here. All right. So we're gonna get into this clip here. So I'm gonna play the clip, and at times I might stop a little bit because to give my commentary, and if we have time, I'll show some other clips too because they're not going back to court. I don't think until next week, something like that. Oh, whatever. Just follow me. So just listen to the music while I share the screen, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am so sorry. Hopefully, everybody can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Put a 1 or something into the chat. Let me go on. Okay, I think we're good now. All right, let me share the screen. I'm so sorry for the wait here, but I'm getting ready to share the screen. And we're going to see day 9 trial. All right, let me share, please. Give me a second. I'm trying to share it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's starting now. Let me fast forward this beginning part.
It's right. Yeah, you can bring them in. See if she's on mute or not. She's right there. Oh. Can you hear me, Ms. Roberts?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We can't see her on the big screen. Just do a split screen so we can start, please. All right. Go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead. It's the best we're going to do right now.
Okay. Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record?
Charlie Roberts.
Ms. Roberts, how do you know Johnny Depp?
I manage his island in the Exuma Keys in the Bahamas for the past 15 years.
Ms. Roberts, where do you live?
I live on the island, and I have a home in Nassau and in Long Island, Bahamas, which I try to get to as frequently as possible.
Can you please describe Mr. Depp's private island generally?
My duties on the private island would be to maintain the island, the buildings, the houses, logistics, not included or limited to provisioning fuel, gas, groceries, just day-to-day operations, staff, and kind of like an estate just in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. Your Honor, I would like to pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 49, which has previously been submitted into evidence.
Okay.
And Mr. Gibson, if you could play this, and Your Honor, if you could publish this to the jury.
There's nothing more powerful than creating a track, but sometimes creating music can be challenging. When I'm blocked or just getting an idea,
Thank you. We can take that down. Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what is shown in that video?
Yes, that's Johnny's house on the island.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson, can you please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 348? And this hasn't been submitted into evidence yet, so let's first just play that for Ms. Roberts.
All right.
Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what is shown in that video?
Yeah, that's his house and closet area.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to, plaintiff moves to admit this into evidence.
All right, 348 in evidence. Do you wish to have it published?
Yes, can we please publish
Okay.
that to the jury? And Mr. Gibson, once it's published, if we could play that again. And Ms. Roberts, what is that doorway with the beads that was just shown in that video?
That's the entrance to the closet
Okay, thank you. We can take that down.
in his house.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, I believe you mentioned that you manage staff on the island. How many people work with you on the island?
Myself and three others is Jason Major, goes by CJ, Stephen Farrow, and Rico Major.
Is this, I believe the witness is not being shown to the jury right now on their screens. Thank you.
The witness. There you go.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, how are you compensated for your work on the island?
I receive a monthly salary.
Other than this monthly salary, what other sources of income do you have?
I get dividends and rental from family properties and businesses that we have.
Since you've been working for Mr. Depp, how often have you seen him?
On average, 2-3 times a year. Sometimes it was longer, more visits. Sometimes I didn't see him for a period of time, depending on what his schedule was or what was happening on the island.
And how would you describe your interactions with Mr. Depp?
The island was a very family atmosphere, dinners together. He was very social, funny, humorous, very kind with all of us, and very outgoing. Enjoyed working with him and for him.
When you first started working on Mr. Depp's island, who would come down to the island?
At the beginning, it was Vanessa and the children. When
Objection,
he started dating
relevance,
Amber.
All right, hold on a minute, ma'am. Objection.
relevance.
It goes to just Ms. Roberts' knowledge of who came down to the island with
We
Mr.
can
Depp.
move forward. Next question.
Okay. Ms. Roberts, Ms. Roberts, are you aware if Mr. Depp brought, or how often did Mr. Depp bring guests with him to the island?
He had guests. He would bring Amber and Amber with her friends, and also I had on one of the occasions I had Paul Bettany and his wife and his children here on one of the trips.
And when did the Bettneys come down to the island?
Sometime in the summer of July 2013.
What happened when the Bettneys came down?
It was a normal trip. We had an incident where I was asked to have Amber leave the island. I scheduled a flight for her to leave to go to Florida that morning, and then that afternoon I was told to bring her back, and I arranged for a flight for her to come back that afternoon to the island.
When did you first meet Ms. Heard?
I believe it was shortly after they started dating.
What was your impression of Ms. Heard when you first met her?
Objection,
Oh, they were very much in love.
relevance.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Next question.
Go ahead. I think Ms. Berthoff withdrew her objection.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so Ms. Roberts, you can answer. What was your impression of Ms. Heard when you first met her?
Oh, they were very nice, a couple in love. She cooked for him, cleaned up. They took care of each other. They were a very happy couple.
When, if at all, did that change?
Hi, I'm Sanjay C. Here's a quick tour of some of the exciting features you'd get with the Volt audio interfaces. Volt is a line.
With each visit, it changed. More of it was more not like an island life anymore. It was more of wines and more requests, simple things, toiletries, to have things here in place before they came or she came as well. So it luggage changed.
Nikki!
Luggage. I mean, just things evolved and kind of mushroomed a bit.
How often would you see Ms. Heard on the island when she was in a relationship with Mr. Depp?
I would, on average, every day, taking meals, cleaning houses, sometimes more.
And how often would Ms. Heard come down to the island?
At the beginning, probably the same 2 or 3 times a year. sometimes 3 times with her friends and family and Johnny.
During your interactions with Ms. Heard, what, if any, changes did you observe of Ms. Heard?
The taking care of the cooking the meals, we then had a chef come to cook. It was more of a formal island with chefs and housekeepers and things like that. Changed and yeah, pretty much that.
Ms. Roberts, were you on the island in August 2014 for Mr. Depp's detox?
Yes, I was.
Who else was on the island?
I flew to Nassau and met Johnny, Amber, and Deb. I flew them back to the island, and then a couple of.
Ms. Roberts, I believe you froze there for a second. I heard you say Johnny, Amber, and Deb, and then you were cut off for a second.
Nikki, you got jokes.
A couple days later, Dr. Kipper arrived.
What do you recall about that time that Mr. Depp came down to the island in August 2014?
That he was going to be here. They were going to be here for an extended period of time, at least a month or longer. And so we provisioned for a month for the trip. And after about a week or two, they left.
Where was Mr. Depp staying for the detox?
In his house.
Is that the same house that was just shown in those videos earlier?
Yes, it was.
How often would you see Mr. Depp when he was on the island for the detox?
I was every day, but not face to face, just from delivering, replenishing the house, delivering supplies, waters and things like that, linens and changing things out. So glimpsing him, not a conversation as it used to be.
How was Mr. Depp when you saw him?
He was always asleep on the couch.
While Ms. Heard was on the island for the detox, what, if any, injuries did you observe on Ms. Heard?
I didn't see anything.
After Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard left the island, what happened next?
We would go into the house and break it down, empty out the refrigerators, change the linens, collect the laundry, straighten the house back up again.
After they left, what, if any, property damage did you observe?
There wasn't any.
Ms. Roberts, to what extent were you involved in Mr. Depp and Mrs. Heard's wedding in February 2015 on the island?
Pretty much all aspects of it, logistics, work permits, getting things set up onto the island, to the island, staff, provisions, building of the tents and organizing transportation of guests to and from the island.
When did you first hear that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were getting married on the island?
Objection calls for hearsay and relevance.
What's the relevance of when she heard?
I can move on.
Okay, next question.
What communications, if any, did you have with Ms. Heard about the wedding?
We were given information on a schedule. To better help me schedule and the provisioning of what would be on the island, beverages and food and things like that. We were given a schedule for daily things were going to happen each day, what time foods were, when people were coming in, how many people would be at meals, just so I had a better idea of planning of what was happening. It was detailed. It was what was happening each day, and then it was the rehearsal night, and there would be, we had scheduled, like, it would be dinner, dancing, drugs, music, and then the wedding. We were very conscious about doing the wedding. The next day, we were doing the wedding, the ceremony, and we were specific on time. Privacy was very important. We were very careful of people taking pictures. I think everybody was given disposable cameras and asked not to take pictures. I was concerned about that also, but we were doing the ceremony at sunset, so there really wouldn't be issue with what paparazzi people and things like that. And shortly when the ceremony was about to happen, it actually happened earlier than it was scheduled. The bridal party and Amber showed up early, and we were still scrambling for flowers and setting up and getting beverages and snacks down there. And there was a plane circling overhead, and it just kept on circling and circling and taking pictures. And the ceremony proceeded earlier than was scheduled.
Did you observe Mr. Depp drinking alcohol at the wedding?
Objection leading.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Ms. Roberts, as part of the provisioning for the wedding, did you order alcohol for the wedding?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Ms. Roberts, what did you order for the wedding in February 2015?
I was given a list of food. I was given a list of beverages for wine, champagnes. I was asked to have Dr. Pepper and sugar-free Red Bull here, because at that time that was what Mr. Depp or Johnny was drinking, was Dr. Pepper and sugar-free Red Bull.
Okay. Did you observe Ms. Heard drinking alcohol at the wedding?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Who did you observe drinking alcohol at the wedding?
Pretty much everybody was drinking and doing shots and celebrating. It was a party.
Ms. Roberts, I'd like to discuss with you when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were on the island in December 2015. Who came down to the island with them?
I flew to Nassau to meet them, which is what I normally do. I meet himself, Johnny, and whoever comes to the island. I fly to Nassau to meet them, just to make sure that the transition is smooth with customs and immigration. So I flew to Nassau, and I met Johnny, Amber, his children, and a friend of the children, and load the luggage onto the caravan plane, and we boarded the plane and came to the island. And a couple days into the trip, Alice and Greg and Alice's 3 children and a nanny came to the island as well.
Who are Alice and Greg?
Alice is a clothes designer, and Greg was her partner, and I believe he's a photographer.
When did you first interact with Ms. Heard when she came to the island in December 2015?
At the airport, when I flew to Nassau to meet everybody. Usually when they come down off the plane, there's hugs and kisses and chatting for a couple minutes while the luggage is transferred.
How close were you to Ms. Heard?
Close, hug, kiss, how are you, talk, same with everybody. So face to face, cheek to cheek.
What, if any, makeup did you observe Ms. Heard wearing when you first interacted with her?
I don't recall if she was or was not wearing makeup. If she wore makeup, it was very natural. I don't think often she wore makeup on the island. I don't recall her wearing makeup.
What, if any, injuries did you notice on Ms. Heard?
I didn't notice any.
Ms. Roberts, you mentioned that Gregory, a photographer, came to the island during that time. How often did you observe Gregory on the island?
I interacted every day because meals went down and changing the sheets and cleaning the room. So I see everybody every day there.
And when you saw him, what was he doing?
There was a photo shoot on the island. Amber was wearing Amber was wearing Alice's clothes, and they were doing a photo shoot on the beach. And Greg was taking the pictures.
What, if anything, do you remember about that particular time that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard came down to the island?
There was a incident between Johnny and Amber here during that trip.
Okay, can you please describe that incident?
On the evening, we kind of called it a night. Dinner was finished. We wrapped everything up down here at the staff area in the kitchen. Myself and CJ came to the office later on that evening, and Johnny was in the office up here, and he was agitated, kind of walking back and forth. I'd asked him if he needed anything because I wasn't sure why, if he was up here to get something or was looking for something, which wouldn't be unusual for people to come up here. So he was here, talked for a couple minutes, the three of us, and a couple minutes later, Amber came into the office and the three of us were in the office, and Amber came in, and she was asking him to tell him to come back to the house. Please come back. I'm sorry, come back. And he stood here, reluctant to go, didn't want to go, and a little exchange back and forth. He left the office and got into his vehicle and started it up, and Amber went outside and stood in front of the vehicle, so that didn't drive away. Amber was standing in front of it, and again, she was asking him to don't leave. I'm sorry. Come back to the house. After a couple minutes, she got in the vehicle and they left to go back to their house.
What happened after they went back up to the house?
CJ and I were still in the office and weren't really sure. Decided that maybe it would be best if we just drove up there just to make sure that everything was okay. And so we got in the golf cart and we drove up to their house, got into the parking lot, and his vehicle was in the parking lot, and you could hear them. You can hear them inside you could hear inside the house yelling, Amber yelling, and Johnny answering back, and you could really hear what was being said. We stood there for a couple minutes, CJ and myself, and then you started to hear, it became audible. Amber was telling him that he was a washed up actor. He was going to die a fat, lonely old man. Then you heard, you hit me with a can. You heard Johnny say, you hit me with a can. And then he came down the steps and Amber was behind him, and she had a bottle in her hand, was removed, and there was a brief pause, the moment, I think, of initial shock or uncertainty of why, that we were there. Neither Johnny nor Amber knew that we were there. He proceeded to walk back to the John Deere, and she again he was sitting in the seat. Amber came up to him and was asking him to come back in the house, that she was sorry, please come back in the house. And he didn't come out of the seat, and she was hugging and kissing him, and I love you, I love you. She was telling him I loved you. He didn't react. Johnny sat there. Eventually,
See, this girl is really off her rockers. She really is. See, that's that borderline personality disorder. They always fear of abandonment, that you're going to leave me, you're going to leave me. He's leaving because you're full of drama. He can't take it. Let the man, take a little break and walk away. Talk more, everybody's more calmly. But no, 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 she can't let him walk away. But then she claiming he's abusing her. Yeah, really. Okay, I resume.
Got out of the John Deere and proceeded to start to walk away. At that time, Amber started to grab at him and his shirt and trying to pull him back to the house. Just basically viciously trying to pull him back and get him back into the house and yelling at him. And at that point, I was between them and felt it was best, and I was getting worried about what was going to happen, and it was best that I remove him from the situation. And so CJ took Amber back to the house, and I walked Johnny over to the cafe, which was basically 30 seconds away from the house, because it was the only place I could take him to at the time.
And you mentioned that Ms. Heard was viciously trying to pull Mr. Depp back. Can you explain what you mean by that?
This story.
It was like clawing, grabbing at his clothes, grabbing his hair, trying to like pull him back, like an angry, like he was leaving and come back. He couldn't leave in the vehicle because the keys had been taken out. So there wasn't a way for Johnny to drive away. The only way was for him to walk away, and it wasn't a pleasant situation of wanting him to not leave, and angry and yelling and just yelling, come back, don't leave, and things like that.
At any point, did Mr. Depp hit or touch Ms. Heard?
Objection leading.
All right, seeing the objection.
Ms. Roberts, how did Mr. Depp react to Ms. Heard viciously grabbing him?
He didn't. He stood there with his arms by his side, and he didn't do anything.
Ms. Roberts, when you were back in the cafe with Mr. Depp, what happened next?
I was concerned because I had heard him say that he'd gone.
Objection to her being concerned. That's not
I'll
responsive to
sustain as to
question.
concerned. All right.
Okay, Ms. Roberts, without testifying as how you felt, what did you observe when you went back to the cafe with Mr. Depp?
When we went back to the cafe, he had a mark across the bridge of his nose. I got a bag of ice to put on it so that it wouldn't swell, just to make sure that it wasn't bleeding. And he walked over to the love seat at the cafe, and he laid down and went to sleep. And CJ came back over, and I asked CJ to stay there for the remainder of the evening, for the remainder of the morning. And I left CJ inside the cafe, and I left Johnny on the couch.
When did you next see Ms. Heard?
That morning, I saw her that morning.
How close were you to Ms. Heard when you interacted with her the next morning?
Conversation in a couple feet away.
When you saw her, how did she appear?
They had guests leaving, and it was kind of a normal morning, going down to the beach to see the guests leave.
What, if any, makeup was Ms. Heard wearing?
Again, I'm not sure. If she wore makeup on the island, if it was very natural looking.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Ms. Heard?
I didn't observe any.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Mr. Depp?
The marking across the bridge of his nose.
When did Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp leave the island?
I believe they left that afternoon. The guests left in the morning, and I believe they left that afternoon.
After Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp left the island, what did you do next?
Our usual, we go into the buildings and we break them down. We empty out the refrigerators, garbage, take all the perishables out of the house, straighten the place up, take the linens away, things like that.
What did you observe when you went through that process?
The island was as it was when they arrived. The only thing that was different was there was the liquid on the deck with a can, I believe, of mineral spirits or something there next to it, which had leaked out onto the deck. And then in the over the railing were paintbrushes and art supplies, paintbrushes, paint tubes, big jars that the paints are in, and those were all scattered in the bush.
Ms. Roberts, when is the first time you provided testimony about this incident in December 2015?
I believe it was for another case in May 2020.
Ms. Roberts, how often have you seen Mr. Depp drink alcohol on the island?
He goes through periods of time where he's been here and he doesn't drink, and it's non-alcoholic Beck's or something like that. It varies. Sometimes he drinks when he's here, sometimes he doesn't.
How often have you seen Ms. Heard drink alcohol on the island?
She drank wine. She drank wine with her drink was wine with dinner, maybe in the afternoon, but I know definitely with dinner.
Did you observe Ms. Heard drinking alcohol when Mr. Depp was not drinking alcohol?
Objection leading.
No, sustained is leading.
Okay. How often have you seen Mr. Depp drunk?
I would know he has a huge tolerance for alcohol. I haven't seen him passed out drunk or anything like that. So he drinks.
New York, you
but I
too
haven't seen him
funny.
passed out drunk.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Roberts, the salary you receive for managing the Bahama Island is approximately $10,000 a month, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so that comes out to $120,000 a year? Correct? Okay. And
Yes.
you've been receiving that salary for many years, correct?
Correct.
Right. In fact, I think you got a raise to $10,010 in 2018. Do you remember that?
No, I don't know the exact number, but I know I get that a month.
Okay. And that's in addition to all of the expenses, correct? For running the island.
The expenses,
Of running the island.
I get a salary every month. I'm not sure what you're asking me.
So the other people that are on the island, to the extent they work, they get a different salary, right?
Yes.
Okay, and all of the expenses you have, you talked about what you have to do to provision the island and everything else and run it. All of those expenses are paid separately, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you said you've been managing this island for 15 years for Mr. Depp, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
All right. Now, let's talk for a moment about those two videos that you testified to were part of the house. The first video was missing both the closet and the bathroom, correct?
I don't remember. I'd have to look at it again.
All right. And the
There was
second,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. You didn't come through. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I think in the first video, the beads were the closet, and then there was the bathroom next to the closet.
Okay. That was
And
the
that's what you asked me.
that was the second video.
Oh.
Do you know who,
Sorry.
do you know who took those videos?
Oh, I did.
Okay. When did you take those videos?
Oh, it would have to be, I'm not sure, a couple of years ago, maybe longer. I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you take those videos for the UK trial?
I don't recall if it was for that.
Abby,
Is there
hugs
a
and kisses.
reason that the
Happy
closet and the
Monday.
bathroom were
All right,
left
lady.
out
Thank you for
of the
stopping by.
first video?
No, I stood in the house and did a circle around of the house.
Who asked you to make that video?
Don't pay full price on Apple when you can do this instead. Meet Capital One Shopping. So Capital
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Was it Mr. Waldman? Adam Waldman?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Can't recall?
I can't remember who asked me. No, I can't.
Okay. Now the second video, that shows the closet and then there's a door there. Would you agree that door opens up into a bathroom?
Next to the closet, yes.
Okay. And we don't have a video of the bathroom, correct?
I don't believe there was a video of the bathroom.
And no one asked you to make a video of the bathroom, correct?
Objection relevance.
I'll overrule it now. Okay.
Correct?
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure if anybody asked me to, I don't believe I videotaped the bathroom.
And my question was, and no one asked you to videotape the bathroom, correct?
Abby, you call him the backpack man. I'm done.
Let's talk for a moment about the logistics of the island. So Mr. Depp's house, we've seen the inside of, and you said that the cafe was a 30-second walk, I think you said. How many yards?
Yeah. I don't know. I walk it. It's just outside his house through the parking lot and walkway to the cafe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, and the cafe is where Mr. Depp would regularly have his meals, correct?
Correct. All the guests would have their meals there.
Okay, including Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard if she was there and their children, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and
For
then
dinners, yes.
and then you were located on the other side of the island, correct? That's where you stay?
Or I stay in the middle of the island, yes.
Okay, how far away is that from the cafe and the house?
Objection compound.
I'll sustain the objection if you want.
How far away is it from the house?
Where I stay,
Yes,
probably a 3-minute golf cart ride,
okay.
5-minute walk.
Okay. And then when other guests come, I think you were talking about tents. Do they stay in tents?
No, the tents were erected for the wedding, and then they were dismantled. And sometimes we would erect them if we were asked to, just in case somebody wanted to stay there. But people didn't stay in the tents; they stayed in the buildings here.
Okay, so how much accommodation can you handle in the buildings for other guests? I'm not talking about the house, Mr. Depp's house. We've seen that. But how many people can actually be accommodated in the buildings?
We have a 2-bedroom yurt on Brando Beach. We have a beach house, which has the bed in it. And then we have what we call a roundhouse, which has a bed in it as well.
Okay. Now, when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were visiting, whether they had the children there or not, typically would you bring the meals to the cafe for each of the meals?
No, sometimes I would take them to the house. It depended on where they wanted to eat.
All right, and then typically, would you join them for the meal, or would you leave the meal and then come back and clean up afterwards?
Objection compound.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
All right, we'll take that one at a time. Typically, would you bring the meals to them?
Myself or one of the workers here would take the meals.
Okay, how often was it you that would take them?
How often? Maybe every other day, every day. It depended on how, if people were eating in their buildings or eating together.
All right, and would you stay and eat the meal with them, or would you leave?
If we were invited for dinner, we would all eat together. Usually we would take the food to the places and leave.
And then would you be called to come pick them up?
No, we would sometimes go back in the evenings on our own and clean up and turn some of the lights off. And sometimes we would do it in the morning. It depended on what was happening.
Okay, so other than bringing the meals, and it could be you or somebody else, how often did you interact with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard during the days when they were on the island?
On average, every day.
In what context other than delivering the meals and picking them up?
Oh, just see if anything was needed, if everything was all right, things like that. Generally passing them if they were walking or in the office or on the beach.
Okay. Now, would it be fair to say that you weren't spending 24/7 with them?
No, I
In New York,
Okay.
you
And
you
would it be
coming
fair
in
to
hard
say
with
that you
the
don't
jokes. I
know
love it.
What they were doing during the times that you weren't passing them by or bringing meals?
Native deodorant.
Yes, unless they were on the beach.
Okay.
Then I would know. But
So you wouldn't know what happened, what would be taking place within the house, for example, when you weren't there. Correct?
correct.
And you wouldn't know whether Mr. Depp was taking drugs, correct?
Correct.
And you wouldn't know whether Mr. Depp was drinking, correct?
I would only know by cleaning up.
And you wouldn't know, well, you wouldn't know from cleaning up necessarily whether it was Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard, or somebody else, would you?
Objection compound.
Or what was
Overruled, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Please continue.
unless I would know what it was by what was in the garbage or left out of who consumed or what was consumed, I would be able to know.
Okay. And you wouldn't know what arguments, if there were any, were taking place in that house behind closed doors, right?
Correct.
And you wouldn't know whether there was any kind of physical abuse that was taking place behind those closed doors, correct?
I wouldn't know. Correct.
Okay. Now, let me just take you for a moment to the December 2015 timeframe. How much advance notice are you typically given for when Mr. Depp and his entourage are going to arrive and for how long they're going to stay?
Objection compound.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
All right, let's break it down. How much notice are you given when Mr. Depp and his entourage are coming?
It varies. Sometimes it's a couple days, sometimes it's a couple weeks.
So how much notice were you given in December of 2015 to who would be coming for Christmas on the Bahama Island?
I believe sometime in November
Okay.
for
And,
that trip.
all right. And in November, how many people were you told were coming for Christmas on the island?
I don't recall how many people.
It was a lot more than Amber, Johnny, Lily Rose, Jack, and Lily Rose's boyfriend, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
In fact, it was Amber's parents, correct?
I believe so.
And it was Rocky Pennington and Josh Drew, correct?
I believe they were on the list.
And Rocky Pennington's parents?
Yes, I believe they were on the list.
Do you recall them canceling?
Objection, hearsay.
I recall,
How is that hearsay?
I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
I recall there was a change to the guests.
When did you learn of that?
I don't recall, maybe a couple weeks after, maybe it's beginning of December, maybe middle of December.
Do
I'm
you,
not sure.
do you recall if it was after December 15?
I don't recall.
Did you think that was a little strange that here these people were going to be at
Objection.
Christmas on the island and suddenly they cancel?
Objection, relevance.
I think it's highly relevant.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
What, if anything, were you told about why they canceled?
Objection, hearsay.
Party opponent admission.
Well, if you
What,
want
you
a
don't know?
foundation for that.
Okay. Who told you that Amber's parents, her best friend and fiance, and her best friend's parents were suddenly canceling coming for Christmas on the island?
Objection, compound.
I'll allow that. Go ahead.
I don't know who told me, but I did receive a message. I did receive information.
Frugal.
That, they weren't coming and somebody else was coming instead.
And who was that somebody else coming instead?
It would be Alice and it would be Alice and Greg and the children and the nanny.
And they were coming later, right?
They would be joining. That I think was the words.
Okay. So on the December trip, you testified about a few arguments between Amber and Johnny, right? Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You weren't present when Johnny sustained the gash on his nose, correct?
I wasn't there. No.
Okay. And you weren't present when the mess was made through the paints that you've described, correct?
No.
And so you don't know whether there had been a physical altercation and that led to throwing a paint can to try to slow down Johnny, right?
No, I just heard yelling in the house.
Okay. But that yelling in the house wasn't necessarily the same time, was it? You don't know, do you?
No, it was all in the same. Okay, no.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the summer of 2013. Are you aware that Paul Bettany claims he's never met Amber?
Objection, relevance.
What's the
And calls for
The
hearsay.
relevance is she testified that he was there on the island with her.
And calls for hearsay.
I can ask the question and see if she says.
All right, I'll allow the question. Go ahead.
Can you repeat it?
Are you aware that Paul Bettany has said that he never met Amber Heard?
No, I'm unaware. I don't know that.
Well, let's stay on the summer of 2013 if we can. Do you have a recollection of Amber and Johnny, Lily Rose and Jack taking one final trip on the yacht that Johnny was going to be selling to J.K. Rowling?
I don't know what year that was. I don't know what year that was, but I do remember the yacht being sold.
If I tell you it was July of 2013, does that help refresh your recollection? July 9?
Yeah,
All right. Now,
it doesn't. I just know the yacht was sold.
okay, and you made arrangements, did you not, for a captain to captain the yacht and for them to go out on the yacht?
No, I didn't have any responsibility for the yacht and the crew on the yacht.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of being called because Lily Rose and Jack were upset and they wanted to leave the yacht and have a helicopter take them away?
Objection, hearsay, and compound.
I'm asking whether she has a recollection of this.
I'll allow the question.
Can you ask me it again?
Do you have a recollection of Lily Rose and Jack being upset on the yacht and wanting to leave it immediately, so you arranged for a helicopter to come in to fly them away with Amber?
Objection, compound.
I'll allow it. Okay. Let's just see.
I don't know if Lily Rose and Jack were upset. I do know that I did arrange for transportation off the island at the time.
And in fact, Amber.
Ladies and gentlemen, the people that's in here and the amount of likes is really not adding up too much. So let's get the math good, okay? Let's hit the like. You know, it really does help out the content creator. Thank you. I appreciate, and thank you everybody for being here. I will resume.
Went with Lily Rose, correct?
It was Amber and her friend and Lily Rose.
Okay. And Jack decided at the last minute to stay back, correct?
I don't know if he decided last minute. He stayed.
Okay. Do you recall Lily Rose telling you that she was upset because her father was drinking and trying to hide it from him?
Objection, hearsay.
Hey, Chef. What's up? Have you been following this, Chef? Or you just getting in here? I mean, have you been following this Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? Let me know in the comments.
Passing out in the sand face first.
I recall that he was passed out on the beach. He was out on the beach. Yes.
Okay. And do you recall Jack calling you because he was concerned?
Objection, hearsay.
That's just asking if he called. I haven't asked what he said.
No, you did. I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of Jack being present when Mr. Depp was passed out face first in the sand?
Yes.
And do you have a recollection of Jack being upset?
I don't have a recollection of him being upset.
Do you have a recollection of him being happy about it?
No, I didn't speak with Jack about it.
Okay. But you recall that Mr. Depp was passed out face first in the sand, correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about makeup for a moment. So you don't know what type of makeup regimen Amber uses every day, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, you don't know, you said at one point you're not sure, but it's a natural look. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And would you agree that there are a number of different types of makeup you can use that would still give you a natural look?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll allow it.
I'm guessing there is, yes.
Okay. Okay. And there's sun in the Bahamas, right?
Most of the time.
Do you know what Amber wears for sunscreen?
I think it was at one point I had a brand Shishido or something like that was on the island that we provided.
And do you know whether Amber brought her own as well?
I don't know.
Do you know whether Amber had a skin condition?
I wasn't told.
Okay. But I take it you didn't ask.
No, I wouldn't have asked if somebody has skin condition.
Okay. The wedding.
Let me give you a brief summary, Chef. Well, basically, I never heard of Amber Heard myself, Chef, until this all started happening. Never heard of Amber Heard at all, right? I don't really follow Johnny Depp. I'm not like a big Johnny Depp fan, his movies or nothing like that. Nothing against it. It's just the movies that he picked is not like, the kind of things that I'm interested in watching, right? But I did hear, a few years ago, whatever, that Johnny Depp was going through some of his ex-wife. And I know Jack, the real Jack Newtown, he was doing commentary. He did some commentary on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Something was going on, but I didn't really understand what was happening. And now it's back, it's trending again in the news and stuff like that. And it's really deep. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. So she was hurting Johnny Depp's career because she went out here and she did an article piece. She didn't say Johnny Depp's name, but she said that Johnny Depp was physically, verbally, and sexually assaulted her. So Johnny Depp is like, oh, heck no, I'm not that type of dude. I might get high, I might drink, whatever, stuff like that, but I've never been known to put my hands on a woman. So with her saying this hurt his career. Because he has that Pirate Caribbeans or whatever that's been going on. So that hurt his career. And I think they didn't want to call him for the next Pirates and a couple of other movies. When women like this lie like this affects a man's career and his life. So he's like, look, he tried to sue. I think he tried to sue the newspaper for coming out with the poll, but he ended up losing. So now he's going to court now for defamation of character, like saying, hey, your lies, you can't prove. You abused me. You hurt me. I've been covering up for you. I didn't want to say nothing because a lot of times men is being abused out here, but they don't tell. They don't say anything because people look at them like, oh, man, you weak. You let a woman hit you or you let a woman control you. What kind of man are you and stuff? No, it has nothing to do with that. The man is not weak. He's not a punk. Half the time, men is not going to hit a woman because they know their strength. They way stronger. If he hits her, he's going to knock her out. So I started following this trial. And I was like, this is very interesting. And like everything, she's basically coming up with lies. And then she's been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. She's also been diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder and borderline personality. They have this phobia about people abandoning them, the mood swings, you know what I mean? A histrionic, they're very dramatic, very sexual and stuff like that. It's just a whole lot of stuff. You have to look that one up. So this is a very interesting case, and hopefully Johnny does win because even Johnny's past relationships, Chef, past relationship that he's been in with, all these women is like, wait a minute, this man never put his hands on me. I don't think he's going to get up in ages and start beating on women. And then plus they have a big age gap. See, that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get me wrong. You can, maybe do 10, possibility 12 years. But when you start dating someone that could actually be your child, and this person could be your father or your mother, your son and your daughter, it usually doesn't work out too well. But I guess he was hitting that age. He met this young girl, this beautiful girl, made him feel young again. He feeling good. She's all gaga around. Didn't realize you was sleeping with Satan's daughter. And now look where you at. What a mess. So hopefully I gave you a little bit of insight. Hopefully it does help, but I'll resume. Any questions, put in chat because I'm still kind of learning on everything that's happening. I resume.
The wedding was planned at sunset, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, it went forward at sunset, correct?
Chef, I forgot. Chef, you always have jokes too.
So your recollection is that there's no sunset pictures at the wedding?
I agree with you, New York Beast. Who cares? What kind of sunscreen? This is insane. Amber's lawyers is just grasping for straws because they know this is a bunch of this is bullcrap. This man was obviously being abused by Amber Heard during their marriage. He kept it quiet because he's protecting her. He loved her. Oh, and also, Chef, I didn't say is there was he went to trial at the beginning. His mother was very much physically and abusive to his father, John Depp's father, and to the children. So he ended up kind of following his father's footsteps, being abused by a woman. Oh, such a mess. I resume.
I mean,
Okay.
there was sunset pictures.
Okay. So, last couple questions. The makeup or not makeup, you were asked whether you observed any injuries on Amber in the December 2015 timeframe. Do you believe Amber would cover up bruises to hide them from the kids?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll sustain this.
Do you have any understanding, based on your knowledge of Amber, whether she would try to cover up any bruises or cuts
Same
to
objection.
keep them from the kids?
I'll sustain the objection.
You said that you didn't believe that Amber was wearing much makeup, but you said she participated in a photo shoot in December 2015. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Do you know whether Amber was wearing any makeup for a photo shoot?
I'm not sure the part that I saw, she was in and out of the water.
Do you know whether Amber would want to show bruises or cuts in a photo shoot?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll sustain the objection.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, redirect. Redirect.
Ms. Roberts, how many times have you seen Mr. Depp consume drugs?
Objection leading.
All right, sustained.
Ms. Bredehoff asked you about Mr. Depp passed out on the beach. How would you describe Mr. Depp when you saw him on the beach?
He was passed out. I picked him up and brushed him off, and I left him underneath I believe he was in a hammock, and I believe he had fallen asleep, or he was asleep, and the hammock had overturned. And I picked him up and brushed him off, and left him underneath the lanai with Jack.
Okay, no further questions.
All
Thank
right,
you,
is
Ms.
this witness
Roberts.
subject to recall, Ms. Roberts?
Yes, potentially.
right.
So we'll
Ms. Roberts, since you're subject to recall, did not discuss your testimony with anybody and just did not watch anything about this case. Okay, ma'am?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, your next witness.
You know what's so funny in the courtroom? They says, since you subject to come back, don't discuss this with anybody. Don't watch anything on the news, no newspaper or nothing. You really think these people is really not going to talk about this to anyone, their sister, their husband and man, co-workers or somebody, and they're not going to look online. It's all over line. I wonder how that works out. Interesting. I resume.
Dr. Shannon Curry. She'll come right now.
Dr. who?
Shannon Curry,
Can you, is it C-U-R-R-Y?
C-U-R-R-Y. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
won't do.
You solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case with penalty of law. I do.
My life is just like yours, except it never ends.
Good morning, Dr. Curry.
Good morning.
I'm Wayne Dennison. Could you state your full name for the record?
Shannon Curry.
What do you do for a living?
I am a clinical and forensic psychologist.
What's your educational background?
I started college at Georgetown University. I then transferred to the University of California, Irvine.
This is a lady that
where I
diagnosed
received my
her with
bachelor's
borderline
degree in
personality
psychology and
disorder and
social
histrionic
behavior.
personality disorder.
I completed my master's degree in psychology at Pepperdine University. I went on to complete my doctoral degree in clinical psychology at Pepperdine University, which included several training rotations at different practicum sites. Those are essentially clinical rotations we do to learn various types of psychology. You learn how to do psychological assessment, counseling, etc., and you do that in a variety of different settings. And then I completed a year-long doctoral internship at an American Psychological Association accredited doctoral internship. You do this year before you get your degree. And that was at Tripler Army Medical Center. It's traditionally a military internship. They did admit 2 civilians. I was lucky enough to be one of them. I then completed 2 years of postdoctoral training at Hawaii State Hospital, a locked forensic psychology facility. And that's where you essentially have individuals with severe mental illness who have committed crimes.
Have you done any additional coursework or educational work?
I have. So after I completed my doctorate and my postdoctoral training, I obtained it's called a postdoctoral Master of Science degree in clinical psychopharmacology. That is for partial fulfillment of prescription privileges, meaning that it's part of what we need to be able to prescribe medications as a psychologist, because psychologists don't traditionally prescribe. And we can do that with certain military jurisdictions in other states. I also obtained advanced training in the Gottman method of couples therapy. I completed all 3 levels of training, and then I'm also a Gottman educator for several workshops involving helping parents learn how to prepare to bring their baby home and helping couples without serious problems improve their relationships.
What's the Gottman method?
The Gottman method is a highly research-based method of couples therapy. It's very structured, so different than what many people expect when they think about couples therapy. I always tell my clients I don't want them to come in, just tell each other all their problems, and then have an awkward, silent drive home. In this therapy, they come in, they complete a really structured assessment in the beginning. So they complete a bunch of questions. It gives me a ton of information about their relationship before we even get started, and really identifies the areas we're going to target with structured interventions during each session. I think of it almost like a class.
Okay. Did you get, in the course of your education, any specialized training?
Any what?
Specialized training?
I did. So my internship specifically was dedicated to essentially working with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic stress. A lot of my training has been with psychological assessment and testing. And then my training during practicum and then in my postdoctoral work was dedicated to working with trauma populations and also conducting forensic psychological assessments. Oftentimes, forensic psychological assessments actually refers to doing testing and an interview and a couple other things for purposes related to law. So it's the application of psychology to the courts, to legal issues. And sometimes that also involves doing assessments for the military to determine whether somebody has sustained a mental disability after combat.
You indicated that you did some work at Tripler. What's Tripler and what's the work you did?
So Tripler Army Medical Center is a hospital in Honolulu, Hawaii. If anybody's ever gotten to have a vacation in Hawaii, it's a giant pink building there. And it's one of the top training sites for military psychologists. I was very, very lucky to be able to train there. They have wonderful funding and a lot of new research going on, particularly for PTSD, but really for all areas of mental health. While I was there, I did rotations in family psychology, so doing family therapy. I worked with children, but I also did a neuropsychology rotation, learning really the ins and outs of advanced psychological assessment, identifying not just mental issues, mental illness, but also traumatic brain injuries after trauma, and doing those PTSD evaluations, and then also working with service members who were struggling with a whole host of issues, military stressors, normal life stressors, and then also those who sustained tremendous trauma from combat.
Do you still continue to work with the military?
I do, actually. My practice is very focused on military service members, veterans, and their families.
Okay.
If you're one of the millions of Americans suffering from foot pain, listen.
What work have you done in prior litigation matters?
Well, most of my litigation, if we're talking about civil work, that has mostly been reports. So this is my first time testifying in a civil matter. The majority of my forensic work has been in criminal law or providing psychological assessments. And then I produce a really methodical report, which is typically reviewed by a judge, and a determination is made, or usually there's a settlement beforehand.
Do you work in connection with any particular courts?
I do. So I am actually not sure if I'm on the list anymore in Honolulu, but I am a certified forensic evaluator for the state of Hawaii, which means that I have been appointed by the court to conduct evaluations for matters that are presented. And then I'm also on the list of forensic evaluators in several courts in Southern California. And then I'm contracted by the military, the Department of Defense, now and again for evaluations of PTSD from service members.
Okay, you mentioned PTSD a couple of times now.
Yes.
What are you referring to there?
So PTSD is a mental illness. It can develop after a person has been exposed to a traumatic event. And our diagnostic statistical manual, the DSM, is sort of the authoritative manual of mental illnesses. It's considered our Bible of mental illness. We go there for diagnoses. And according to that, there's a specific type of trauma that a person must experience for them to be able to qualify for a diagnosis of PTSD. And that's an event that is life-threatening. It can also involve sexual assault, and you can experience that either directly, but you can also be traumatized if you've seen it happen to somebody else, or if it's happened unexpectedly or violently to somebody close to you, a family member or a friend. And then there's also a provision for people who are first responders. If they're encountering really traumatic information regularly, that qualifies as a trauma. Now, there are a number of symptoms that can develop.
Sure. We'll talk about that some
Okay.
more. Do you hold any credentials relevant to the work that you do?
Well, I am a licensed psychologist.
Where?
In California and Hawaii.
Okay, and any other certifications or other credentials?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, other than the training with the Gottman method of couples therapy.
Okay. Have you worked with the Hawaii Department of Courts and Corrections?
Yes, I have.
In what capacity?
Well, so that I guess would be a credential. So I am a certified forensic evaluator for the state of Hawaii.
In connection with your doctorate, was there a research component?
There was. So would you like me to tell you about it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I conducted a research study while I was at Pepperdine completing my doctorate. It's called a dissertation. So when you're obtaining your doctorate, you contribute something to the scientific field that you're in. And typically that involves doing what we call novel science. So you're doing an experiment, you're finding out new information and helping the field progress. So I did research in Peru, and I was essentially looking at the effectiveness of a therapy intervention there for kids who were growing up in this community called Ayacucho, which was exposed to 20 years of guerrilla warfare, the longest guerrilla war in the history of the world. And there were a lot of issues in that community, tremendous trauma. And my research was around finding interventions that were really effective for that community.
Where do you work now?
I work for the Curry Psychology Group.
What does the Curry Psychology Group do?
We're a multi-specialty mental health center. So we have neuropsychologists who do testing for kids. We have therapists, individual therapists, couples therapists, family therapists. We even have a meditation teacher. We basically try to meet the needs of our community, and we highly specialize in working with military personnel and their families.
Who's the Curry and Curry Psychology Group?
I'm Dr. Curry.
How many people work for you?
As of right now, I believe it's 13.
Kind of work.
I'm looking at the lawyer turning red and blushing. Look like he got a little crush on this woman. Sir, she's married. You probably married too. Interesting. Resume.
For about 15 years.
How much of your therapy practice focuses on treating individuals?
I would say about half of it is individuals, half is couples.
Okay. Do you do any training of students?
I do.
What's that?
So
Hit the
we
lights.
have
Thank
several
you.
Licensed professionals at our office, and they're earning their additional hours so that they can get licensed. So they're able to see clients, and then I meet with them regularly to supervise them, discuss their cases, provide them with information about different diagnoses, interventions, and treatment methods.
How did you get involved in this case?
I was contacted by Ms. Camille Vasquez, one of the attorneys for Mr. Depp.
Okay. And what was the nature of the contact?
Ms. Vasquez called me and indicated that she might be interested in having me meet the legal team so that I could discuss my expertise and possibly provide my opinions related to the matter.
What were you asked to provide expert opinion on?
So initially, my role that I understood at the time was to review the case materials and provide my opinions regarding anything that I noticed that was consistent or even inconsistent with the psychological science that exists today on intimate partner violence in Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's relationship.
All right, you used a phrase there, intimate partner violence. What are you talking about?
So there are a multitude of different definitions depending on the source or the state. But essentially, intimate partner violence is abuse. It could be physical, psychological, and it's from one partner to another in an intimate relationship.
Did your role in this case evolve over time?
Yes, it shifted. So I was retained at the end of January 2021, and then had just barely begun to review the documents. The case was postponed, and then in October 2021, I was asked by counsel to provide a psychological evaluation of Ms. Heard.
Did, were you ever asked to do a psychological evaluation of Mr. Depp?
No.
Okay.
What types of documents did you consider in this analysis?
So I reviewed quite a few documents as part of my evaluation. That included all of the case documents, Ms. Heard's medical records by Dr. Kipper, her prior mental health treatment records. I believe I reviewed records from Dr. Amy Banks, Dr. Bonnie Jacobs, Dr. Connell Cohen, and also a significant portion of my review involved notes from nurse Erin Filati, at the time Erin Borum, who spent a significant time with Ms. Heard in her direct company. I also reviewed exhibits, quite a few audio recordings, a video recording, several video recordings, or possibly photographs. I might be getting them confused. And multiple witness statements, testimony, and declarations.
Did there come a time when you met directly with Ms. Heard?
Yes, I did. So in conducting my evaluation, I met with Ms. Heard on 2 separate dates, December 10th and December 17th, 2021.
Approximately how much time have you spent with Ms. Heard?
So the evaluation, we spent 12 hours directly with one another. However, there were more hours involved in the evaluation with some breaks. So we spent 7 hours together on the first day, December 10th. Not necessarily together because there was a 1 hour lunch break and about a half hour with breaks split up through the day. And then on the 17th, we spent a little more than 8 hours in the evaluation from start to finish, with a 1 hour break and another half hour of breaks distributed throughout the day.
As a result of the work that you performed, did you form any opinions with respect to Ms. Heard?
I did.
What were those opinions?
The results of Ms. Heard's evaluation supported 2 diagnoses: borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder.
What is a diagnosis?
A diagnosis is a way that that psychologists, psychiatrists, anybody in the mental health field thinks about a disorder. It helps us to communicate a set of symptoms that a person is experiencing. And along with that set of symptoms, it tells other professionals a lot about how those symptoms might have developed, how that person might behave, perceive the world. It also drives treatment. The real purpose is to determine what sort of interventions will be most effective for the person.
Yeah. Previously, you made reference to, I think you called it the DSM-5. What's
Yes.
that?
So the DSM-5, that stands for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, version 5. And that contains every diagnosis we use in mental health. And it's the authoritative manual of mental diagnoses.
Is performing diagnoses something you typically do in your line of work?
Yes.
Thank you. So you referenced 2 personality disorders. What's a personality disorder?
A personality disorder, I think it can be helpful first to kind of define personality. So personality, something we take for granted, but these are the traits, the characteristics, the way we think, we feel, and we act that make us who we are. And these traits are pretty stable over time and across situations. We might, be sure to mind our P's and Q's when we're meeting somebody new, but overall, if somebody were to describe us, or if we were to describe ourselves, we have a pretty good sense of who we are. Sometimes an easy way to think of it is imagining how you might describe a brother or sister or a child if you have children. Their personalities are pretty clear to you. A personality disorder is some sort of dysfunction in those enduring traits. So as opposed to other types of mental illness, when you think about something like depression, That's episodic. It comes and it goes. And when it's treated with medication, it can pretty much be completely mitigated or minimized in a person's life, and their personality is still there, separate from the depression. When we have a personality disorder, there are going to be disturbances in several different areas that are visible in almost all different facets of their life.
Is there a manner in which personality disorders are commonly diagnosed?
Yes, so they can be diagnosed in a treating environment. Treating psychologist or a therapist or a psychiatrist simply does a diagnostic interview, which involves assessing multiple areas of a person's history back down through
I'm
childhood.
going to stop you for a second.
Yes.
What's a treating environment?
Sometimes I'll slip into these words. I apologize. So a treating environment in therapy, if somebody is going in for treatment, the mental health provider will ask them questions to find out what sort of symptoms they've experienced and what sort of things have occurred in their life that might be consistent with these disorders, or rule out these disorders, prove that there's no reason for these disorders to be considered. They might also pay attention to their observations of the client over time and new information the client provides them.
Just look at Amber Heard's face right now. She can't stand this. They can't stand to be called out on who they are. She's crazy. I resume.
The most reliable way, however, to ever come about a diagnosis really is through a comprehensive psychological assessment. And I might use the words assessment, examination, testing interchangeably. They all mean the same thing.
Don't need a man. Blessings, hugs and kisses.
From multiple different sources. One main source is psychological testing using validated objective measures. That means that they've been tested, they've been shown to be accurate for testing what you want to test, and in the environment you're testing. So there are measures specific for court environments where someone might respond differently. You integrate that with the same interview I was telling you that people would do for therapy. We do that as well. And then in a courtroom setting, you're going to look at all the legal records, all of those documents, corroborating information to sort of check your hypotheses that may be developing, and also check against the examinee's statements.
New York Beast, I agree with you. She just got out of bed, no jury, no nothing, barely any makeup.
A clinical interview is a very comprehensive interview. It includes a person's entire life history, as well as very specifically looks at any symptoms they might have. This can start as far back as birth. You might find out if there were any issues with their delivery, any genetic issues, any intellectual issues. How did they do? What was their home life like? How was discipline handled? What's their relationship with their primary caregivers? Were they raised by an aunt, an uncle, their parents? How many siblings do they have? How do they get along with their siblings? How many times did they have to move? Was there any abuse? Did they have any really significant life experiences that come to mind when they think about their childhood? How were they as a student? Did they need special services? Did they get in trouble at school? And you do this, you continue on high school. What were their hobbies? Did they play sports? How many friends did they have? Did they have any trouble keeping those friendships? Then you get into adulthood. Did they go to college? Did they not go to college? How come? What sort of jobs have they held? How did those jobs go? How did they end? That's always an important question. What sort of romantic relationships have they been involved in? How do they identify sexually, culturally? Let's see, what else? What sort of symptoms have they experienced? You go through the entire gamut of some of the main symptoms. You might screen for depression, any disorganized thinking. That means thinking that isn't necessarily in touch with reality, and any current distress they may be having today.
How did you conclude that Ms. Heard suffers from the personality disorders that you identified?
So there was information that supported it from multiple sources. I conducted testing, including one of the main tests that I used. She obtained scores that were consistent with those diagnoses. And then I also, there was evidence of those diagnoses in her records and in her self-report.
All right, counsel, why don't we just go ahead and pause for a second while we go ahead and take our morning recess. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and take our 15-minute morning recess. Do not discuss the case.
Okay, they have a that was the end of that clip. I'm gonna show another clip. So ladies and gentlemen, listen to the music while I look for the next clip. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this clip I'm going to show is still with this case, but I want to show how the property manager said that how Amber Heard called him fat and washed up, her husband fat and washed up, and she used to say some horrible things to him. She even told him his 21 Jump Street days is over. She threw Red Bull cans at him. This woman is completely insane. She cut off his finger. Let me show you a little picture of the finger, ladies and gentlemen. This is the picture of the finger, which she denies. She cut off some of his finger. Crazy. All right, I'm going to share the screen. All right, this clip is about like 12 minutes. Let me play it.
When did you first interact with Ms. Heard when she came to the island in December 2015?
At the airport when I flew to Nassau to meet everybody. Usually when they come down off the plane, you know, there's hugs and kisses and chatting for a couple minutes while the luggage is transferred.
How close were you to Ms. Heard?
Close, hug, kiss, you know, how are you, talk, same with everybody. So face to face, cheek to cheek.
What, if any, makeup did you observe Ms. Heard wearing when you first interacted with her?
I don't recall if she was or was not wearing makeup. If she wore makeup, it was very natural. I don't think often she wore makeup on the island. I don't recall her wearing makeup.
What, if any, injuries did you notice on Ms. Heard?
I didn't notice any.
Ms. Roberts, you mentioned that Gregory, a photographer, came to the island during that time. How often did you observe Gregory on the island?
I interacted every day because meals went down and changing the sheets and cleaning the room. So I see everybody every day there.
And when you saw him, what was he doing?
There was a photo shoot on the island. Amber was wearing Alice's clothes, and they were doing a photo shoot on the beach. And Greg was taking the pictures.
What, if anything, do you remember about that particular time that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard came down to the island?
There was a incident between Johnny and Amber here during that trip.
Okay, can you please describe that incident?
on the evening, we kind of called it a night. Dinner was finished. We wrapped everything up down here at the staff area in the kitchen. Myself and CJ came to the office later on that evening, and Johnny was in the office up here, and he was agitated, kind of walking back and forth. I'd asked him if he needed anything because I wasn't sure why, if he was up here to get something or was looking for something, which wouldn't be unusual for people to come up here. So he was here, talked for a couple minutes, the three of us, and a couple minutes later, Amber came into the office with and the three of us were in the office, and Amber came in, and she was asking him to tell him to come back to the house. Please come back. I'm sorry, come back. And he stood here, reluctant to go, didn't want to go. And a little exchange back and forth. He left the office and got into his vehicle and started it up. And Amber
I speeded up to 1.25.
stood in front of the vehicle, so that didn't drive away. Amber was standing in front of it. And again, she was asking him to don't leave. I'm sorry, come back to the house. After a couple minutes, she got in the vehicle and they left to go back to their house.
What happened after they went back out to the house?
That sounds yum, New York bees.
CJ and I were still in the office and weren't really sure. Decided that maybe it would be best if we just drove up there just to make sure that everything was okay. And so we got in the golf cart and we drove up to their house, got to the parking lot, and his vehicle was in the parking lot, and you could hear them. You can hear them inside. You could hear inside the house yelling. Amber yelling and Johnny answering back, and you could really hear what was being said. We stood there for a couple minutes, CJ and myself, and then you started to hear, it became audible. Amber was telling him that he was a washed up actor. He was going to die a fat, lonely old man. Then you heard, you hit me with a can. You heard Johnny say, you hit me with a can. And then he came down the steps, and Amber was behind him, and she had a bottle in her hand, was removed, and there was a brief pause the moment, I think, of initial shock or uncertainty of why, that we were there. I think neither Johnny nor Amber knew that we were there. He proceeded to.
So I'm going to fill these up with ice.
Walk.
Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear that? She calling her husband, "You're going to die a fat, lonely old man." What kind of woman is this to tell her husband this shit? And then, I'm cursing. Sorry, no cursing at Donna's place. But you're going to tell your husband this, right? And then this woman is insane. Johnny Depp, you got caught up with a young, beautiful woman. She made you feel young again. This is what happens. But I'm so proud of you, John. You standing up for the men that's out here that's being abused by women and they can't tell. This woman is completely out of her mind. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show another clip. I just want to hear when she called him that part because I missed. I was going back and forth. So I'm going to show you today. Basically, I'm just showing clips, different clips of different things, especially some clips that I've missed myself. So I'm going to show another clip. And while we're waiting, like I said, enjoy the music. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the clip I'm going to show now is Johnny Depp talks about the writing on the mirror in lipstick. This was interesting. I never really understood this one too much. But let's listen to the clip. It's like about 15 minutes. I'm going to put on the fast speed of 1.25. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it.
Mr. Rottenborn showed you last week.
Yes.
Could you please remind the jury what's reflected in this photograph?
On the this is from Australia. On March 8th, I believe it was, where after my finger had been the tip of my finger had been taken off. I began to, I was in such shock, I just started writing on the mirror, on walls, and basically what these were for me to Ms. Heard were reminders of moments in our past where I had caught her, where it was revealed to me, even by her, that she had been caught in lies that she had told me. So that's what these are in reference to. The red, the lipstick that says, call Carly Simon, call Carly Simon, she said it better, babe, in reference to You're So Vain, I am imagining. But that's not, I didn't, the Carly Simon message is not mine, that's Miss Heard's.
So let's just break this down a little bit. Who wrote the text that's in black on the mirror?
That would be me.
And what does that say?
She loves, I don't know, like naked Hollywood or something. An artist of, I don't know what the rest says, but what that is Ms. Heard had come to me and she was seemed to be seriously concerned about how she was being portrayed in Hollywood. She was concerned that because she had done films where there was kind of arbitrary nudity and things of that nature, she had voiced to me that she did not want to be, she didn't want to be looked upon that way in the industry. She wanted to be able to escape the chains of.
You notice that, New York Beast. You could see the pain in his eyes and the embarrassment. And he didn't want to say anything because he was protecting her, because he loved her. This woman's pure evil. I resume.
Of being objectified by the Hollywood system, which is a difficult thing for any woman, certainly, unfortunately. But she asked me, how can I avoid being stereotyped as the beautiful blonde who gets her breasts out or goes naked and has to shtuck people in movies? And I gave her my advice on it, on how to avoid it, which I thought was pretty accurate. And her ambition was stronger than what she received from my advice, is what it was.
My name is Rafael.
And I'm Maite, and we're from Oli Life.
My advice that I thought long and hard about, because I did care for her and I did understand. I didn't want her to have to do that. And early on in my career, I was put in a position where, I could have gone on, I could have been just a guy who was on a TV series for a couple of years. And then, you know, what was going to be left of me was, would be on lunchboxes and thermoses and posters and teen idol things. And I fought that tooth and nail because that's not who I was. So I had experienced something similar in terms of being looked upon as something that you're not. And so I fought against it in the very beginning, and it worked out for me for a while there. And I was giving her basically the same advice.
Now, Mr. Depp, you said that you did not write this portion that's in red here that says Carly Simon said it. Call Carly Simon, she said it better, babe. Is that right?
Yes, no, that's not mine.
How do you know that it was misheard that wrote that?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Overruled, though. You can answer.
There are first it looks like it's trying to match my handwriting, but my handwriting is a lot more of a scribble. And also there's another photograph of this where she went in to make sure that there were that the red was more prominent. I believe there's also a napkin down there where
Objection, Your Honor, lack of
wiped.
foundation. He's referring to exhibits that aren't in evidence and
All right,
has no idea whether they even exist.
I'll sustain the objection now. Next question.
Do you recall whether the lipstick writing was on the mirror when you wrote in the black paint?
No, of course not. No.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you one of the text messages that Mr. Rottenborn showed you concerning the injury to your finger. So if we could please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 398. This is a text message from you to Dr. Kipper that I believe Mr. Rottenborn showed you on cross-examination. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And why are you apologizing to Dr. Kipper in this message?
I believe that at that point in my brain and in my life and in my heart, I was completely and utterly frustrated with how I was living my life, and I had some disagreement with Dr. Kipper, and I was apologizing to him for having gone against his wishes, or gone against his advice, let's say.
What did you mean when you said, I have chopped off my left middle finger as a reminder that I should never cut my right finger off again?
It's my way of dealing with a painful situation. It's my way of dealing with a painful situation where I resort to humor. So I had lost the tip of my right finger, and so I'm saying to him, I've now cut off my left finger to remind me never to cut my right finger off again. That's not, I mean, when you say I got my finger cut off, or I cut my finger off, or this or that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you did it yourself. And again, I'm a guitarist and have been since I was 12, and that was the only piece that I found in my life at the age of 12 where I knew I knew who I could escape into music and learn music. And the last thing, I'm a guitar, I mean, I still play the guitar it's still my first love, aside from my children. It's still my first love. There's no reason in the world why I literally would cut my own finger off to ruin this beautiful opportunity that I was given at 12 to learn how to play the guitar. and again, why would I start lopping off digits in my 50s? If I, as Mr. Rottenborn suggests, am a kind of, walking tantrum. When I was younger, why wouldn't I just start chopping off fingers and or some kind of, why would I ruin the only thing that was really good in my life aside from my children? So when this finger went, the tip of this finger went, the only thing I could think in my mind was, thank God it wasn't left hand, which is the fret hand. I'm right-handed, so that's the fret. That's where the fretboard is. If you lose a finger from your left hand, I'm not Django Reinhardt, who had only 2 fingers to play with. If I'd have lost a finger from here, I would have had.
Look at Amber Heard's expression while he's talking about it. It's like she really doesn't care. She doesn't have no remorse. She doesn't have no empathy. She doesn't care. It's like, so what? Get over it. You still have a finger. I just took off a clip of it. So what? Who cares about you playing the guitar? Who cares that you learned this since you was a child? So what? Who cares? See, that's the look that she has. I resume.
To relearn how to play the guitar all over again. It's just not the case. Even though I say I've chopped my finger off, it's like saying, I bumped into a knife or something. It's not. I'm not admitting to. I think if I was going to admit to someone that I actually chopped my finger off, this text wouldn't be as it is. I think it would have been a long explanation as to why I got to that point. But no, I can't take responsibility for what I now call Little Richard, my chopped finger.
Mr. Depp, at the time that you sent this text message to Dr. Kipper, had you told him what had actually happened to your right finger?
Oh yes, yeah.
And when did you tell him that?
He was aware of that day, the day that it happened. Malcolm was aware of it. Jerry was aware of it. Stephen was. Everyone was aware of it. And of course, yes, when I went to the doctor, the emergency room, I lied to them because I didn't think it wise to cause a ruckus, implicate Miss Heard, and then have 8 million stories out in the press about how she'd thrown a bottle of vodka at me, and it smashed all the bones in the tip of my finger and cut off about, well, it was all sliced down through. You've seen the pictures. It was pretty horrible. It was, and I didn't want to put her in that situation. I didn't want to put any of us in that situation. I didn't want to put the film in that situation. That was why I said it was crushed in an accordion door, and it was only the second doctor who actually told me what he was.
Your Honor, hearsay.
I haven't finished my sentence. How do you know?
I'll hold you for a moment. Go ahead.
Thank you. It was the emergency room doctor was first. The next day, I went to see a specialist, a hand surgeon, and this was still in Australia. And he had recognized that my excuse for the finger being gone.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay. What the doctor conveyed to him about his thoughts on the finger injury. That's classic hearsay.
Your Honor, it's in the context of medical treatment.
No, I'll sustain that objection.
Your Honor, I think this is a good stopping
All
point.
right.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and take our lunch recess.
How was that hearsay if that's what the doctor was? Oh my gosh, this is just crazy. All right, that's that clip. I'm going to show another clip. Let's see what. Yeah, I'm going to show another clip. Yeah, look at her face. Busy. It just, it's like, oh, whatever. Oh gosh, he's still harping on the. I clipped off a little piece of his finger. He still have his finger. Who cares about him wanting to play guitar? Who? I mean, really, Johnny, get a life. Grow over your childhood. Yeah, that's how she thinks she doesn't care. Johnny Finger was slightly cut off the tip, so it affected the way he plays guitar. Did I say piano? I meant guitar. I might have said that. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Affects the way he plays the guitar. I understand that has an issue for him. Yeah. And like he said, New York Beast, he said that this was his thing. I mean, he loved his children. He said that too, but this was like his getaway, his comfort. We all have a different type of getaway. That's something we like to do that just, takes our mind away from our troubles or whatever we could be going through in life. And that was his thing. He likes to play the guitar. And when he first started off, if I'm correct, in his career, he really wanted to get into music, but, he needed money. He ended up getting, acting gig. And somewhere it was a video I seen that was like Nicolas Cage told him, say, oh man, check out this acting gig. So him and Nicolas Cage is friends, and then look at him, he blew up until he met this woman and she done changed his life. Oh my gosh, what a shame. All right, listen to the music while I find another clip. Feel free to put questions and anything, comments in the chat box. I'm looking for something else. Okay, this clip I'm going to show, this is actually my first time watching with y'all, ladies and gentlemen. And this clip here, if I'm correct, can I find it? It's like never before seen footage. Amber Heard testifies about her previous domestic violence arrest. I guess that was the one that she was, because she was in a relationship with another woman and she was arrested for domestic violence. That's why I can't wait when they go back to court, because I think they're going to bring this up. Okay. So we're going to watch this clip. And then there's also another clip. It's an older one too. I guess when Johnny Depp speaks out about what happened to his finger. So first we're going to watch what she's saying. And this came out in 2016. And then we're going to get into the other one with the Johnny Depp. This clip here is like about 5 minutes. So let me share the screen, ladies and gentlemen, and see what this is all about. Today, I'm just basically sharing clips. And ladies and gentlemen, let me know if you've seen this clip too. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it. This one here, I guess with the domestic violence that she had with that woman, this is a previous domestic violence arrest. So it has to be that one. Let's see what this one is about. Let me play it.
You've been previously arrested for committing domestic violence against your spouse.
I'm going to irrelevant, harassing, has nothing to do with this proceeding. It's argumentative. Go ahead and explain how you want to.
There was no domestic violence within that relationship. And the state of Washington, where I was arrested, immediately dropped the charges because they knew the exact same thing that I just told you, that no domestic violence ever occurred. And my ex has stated such. In fact, it was so ridiculous, those charges. It was a verbal argument, it was misinterpreted, misrepresented, and completely overreacted upon by two individuals in a power position. And as soon as they found out that we were partners, which we were not going to be arrested for before. As soon as he found out we were partners, the male cop, not this other woman who's later been brought into the press, this male cop put me in handcuffs, and that's there was no physical violence, no physical abuse, and zero domestic violence whatsoever between us. It was a trumped up charge, and it was dropped immediately for being such.
Isn't it a fact, Ms. Hurd, that in fact on September 24th, 2009, you were arrested for domestic violence committed against Tasha Van Ray?
Asked and answered. Isn't that what you just talked about?
Did I miss something?
Isn't it a fact, Ms. Hurd, that on September 14th, you were in fact taken to jail? It wasn't dropped immediately.
Same objections, Vegas.
Same objections.
Isn't it a fact, Ms. Hurd, that you spent the night in jail from September 14th to September 15th, 2009, as a result of your arrest for domestic violence?
Same objections. It's irrelevant.
Is that true?
352. She's already answered what happened. It's
Is that
vague.
true?
It's argumentative. It's
already-
harassing. You just want to, get your harassment in. Go ahead.
Let the record reflect Mr.
I just
Harder's
answered.
directing her not to answer. Did you
I
spend the night in
answered
jail?
you.
I never said don't answer. I never said that.
Reporter is about to.
That's not my fault.
Yes, it is.
Because she keeps cutting me off every time I
Why
say
are you
something.
There's no need to yell, Mr. Harder.
Well, I have to be heard. Everyone's talking over me. You've got a whole wall of lawyers over there who are
Miss
talking over me.
May I continue?
Except for Hans.
Can I say something?
Ms. Hurd, isn't it a fact that Tasha Van Ray on September 14th, 2009 claimed to the police that you had hit her arm?
Same objection.
No?
I don't know anything about this.
Answer give a full answer, please.
I don't know anything about.
You see it, busy mama, do you? You see it. You can see it there. And you see how they was all arguing in there. You see, these type of people love drama. They like chaos. They just love it. And she was getting supply off it. It was like a oxygen to her. To her was oxygen. She was loving it. You can see it, right? Let me resume.
About the claim that you just made about what Tasha said or did not say. I can't possibly know that. I know nothing about what you just said.
Isn't it a fact that on September 14th, you hit Tasha Van Ray in her arm?
No.
Isn't it a fact on September 14th, you broke the necklace off of Tasha Van Ray's neck?
352.
A
It's
necklace.
irrelevant to these proceedings. Argumentative harassing.
Isn't it a fact that Tasha Van Ray reported to the police that you had hit her arm?
352. Irrelevant, vague, argumentative, and harassing.
And speculation.
Isn't it a fact, Ms.
It's
Hurd,
heard still.
that you know very well that your spouse, that your domestic partner, Tasha Van Ray, requested that you be arrested for domestic violence?
Calls. You need to please let me get my objections in, okay? Please.
Okay.
There's intimate relationships here relative to a variety of people, including a person called Tasha.
Tasha.
Who's she?
She was Miss Hurd's wife.
Okay. And that relationship preceded her relationship with Mr. Depp?
That's correct.
Did you say on direct that you saw no previous inter-partner violence? Just yes or no?
I don't believe I did.
You don't believe that you saw
No, this is not the lady here. This is another, if I think that's what you asked me, busy mom. This is another therapist that was on the stand and was more leaning more towards Amber Heard. And I guess they was asking her questions about the past relationship, the domestic violence that she had with the other woman. But that clip that we seen was old clip. So somebody did a video with the old clip. Well, what's the name of the person? Let me, Incredibly Average. I think his name too, Incredibly Average. So it's a great. Oh, I didn't like it. I'm so sorry. Let me like your video. Incredibly Average, and I guess he had this clip and he pulled it up, and this is interesting. Okay, let me resume, and I'm going to show you another clip. Resume.
Partner violence, or you didn't say it under oath?
I don't believe I said that yesterday.
Okay.
Isn't it?
Okay, the end of that clip.
Don't let another year go by being unhappy with how you look. This is the year to reach your goals.
Okay, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Give me a second here. Okay. I'm going to show another clip. Now, this one here, I didn't see either. This is an old clip. It's with Johnny Depp. I guess he speaks out, and it came out in 2012, I think it was. I'm not too sure, whatever it was. But you'll see it on the clip. And he talks about, I guess, the clipping of his finger. So, what we do, listen to the music while I pull it up. Enjoy the music, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit the like button, whoever's coming in here. It really does help out the content creator. It really does. Okay, let's get it.
Basically, I had a pretty nasty injury that I actually I had to protect her at the time. As I said, it was caught in the door. These huge accordion doors at this house. That wasn't the case at all. She smashed. She threw a vodka bottle at me, and my hand it looked like Vesuvius. And then I got infections. I ended up with MRSA twice, so it's very complicated. I was trying to just get the finger back, and then deal with the insanity of having had my finger chopped off by this woman that I was married to. I don't recall any of that stuff. When I was down, or when the film was, or when I was off, not being able to work because of the severity of the injury, I had to go back to Los Angeles and have surgery. So most of the time, what I was dealing with was just recuperating, or just I didn't want to lose the finger because MRSA, the MRSA infection, is really quite evil. And I ended up with it twice, so I was really just worried about losing a finger or an arm. Or
Story about the bottle and the
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't have it on mute. I hope it wasn't echoing. Was it echoing too bad? Do I have to rewind this, or were you able to hear it? Put in the chat and let me know, because when you sharing the screen, if you don't put it on mute, it will echo the video. And I know that sounds very annoying because I can't stand to hear it myself too, because you understand. So let me know, ladies and gentlemen, were you able to hear it? Do I have to play this video again? Were you able to hear it clearly? Put a 1 something. Talk to me. Talk to me. Were you able to hear it? I'll just resume it. But I'll press mute now.
and Amber, apparently created some story about you punching a wall or something like that.
she says that I did it myself, yeah, by punching a wall.
Just another way to hurt you.
That's it. I'd like to see reactions from scientists. I mean, and physicians who are familiar with kind of this sort of trauma, this sort of thing, because I'd love to see her explain how someone hits a wall, and if they put their fist through it, that means that it's drywall or something. It's not.
Well, if you're going to go Barnaby Jones on me, I may go back at you with Quincy.
Okay, well, at least you was able to make out, but it does sounds better when you press the mute so you can hear it clearer, because that's annoying. I know I can't stand to hear that when I be on people's channels. I'm like, press the mute. Well, I don't tell people to do it. I can't tell the content creator what to do, but I'm like, press the mute, press the mute. Let me stop. All right. Okay, what he said, the clicking echo is not that much visible to me. LOL. Okay, cool. All right, you was able to catch it. All right, I'm going to show another clip, but if you notice when he did that clip, he said infections, and I didn't even think about that. Do you know infections sometimes can be so bad it can kill you? Go through your bloodstream, it can kill some people. He might have turned around because the infection could have been so bad, could have took off his whole his whole fingers, his whole hand. This is serious, and for her to sit up in the courtroom like, whatever, crying baby, get over it. It was years ago, so what? She's a nut. She's a nutcase. All right, I'm gonna find myself another clip. Yeah, I'm just clipping it up today. All about clips. All right. You have any questions, comments, concerns? Put them in the chat box, and I'll gladly answer them to the best of my abilities. All right, listen to the music while I find ourselves another clip.
Bessie, comfortable, stylish.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have to show it again. I just love to show this little clip of her with this James Franco. You know you cheating on your husband and bring him in the house. You know what? This woman is trifling. All right, I'll press mute now so you can hear it clearly. Well, it's really nothing to hear on here. Just talking. All right, but I'm gonna mute that video anyway. Let's go. She going downstairs to get James Franco, sneak him in the house. Trifling. Don't people know there's cameras all over the place? You can't get away with stuff. Just amazing. James Franco got a whole knapsack full of drinks, sleepover. Who do you think? All that hair is going to hide who you are? James Franco, you think you're going to hide under that hat? I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. Oh, so sweet. Trifling. Okay, let me see. Was there anything else here that I missed? So what did New York Beast have to say? Amber is in blank blank and bully. Shaking my head. Oh yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, sneaky Jezebel. Mm-hmm. All right, what Bismarck said, what is going on here? That's just an old clip showing that, she was having an affair with James Franco while they was married. And I think Elon Musk too, but I think they were separate or divorced at that time. I can't remember. I'm not quite sure. But they was trying to get James Franco on the stand. I guess he was able to get out of it. And Elon Musk, and I guess he was able to get out of it too. That would have been so interesting. She wanted to get caught and will stay denying the fling in court. Judge gonna light a fire under her. Mm-hmm. All right. You got a point, your beast. Uh-huh. She knows she no good. Sexually promiscuous is another symptom, I believe, in high sex drive. Yes, that's the histrionic. That's what they do. Histrionic, that's what they do. All right, let me see if I can find y'all another clip. What do? We listen to the music while we wait. Ha 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 ha. Oh, this chick is nuts. She's bat crazy. She's totally insane. All right, music. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this clip I'm going to show you. This is about like 30 to 40 minutes long. Well, I'm gonna speed it up. But this clip is interesting because this was a clip when I don't know what day it was in court, but Amber Heard's attorney motioned to dismiss Johnny Depp's evidence. This was interesting. This is when the lawyers was kind of like fighting it out. So let's listen to this one. All right, I'm muting it and let's get it, ladies and gentlemen.
Both Mr. Depp and implication.
It's mute in the beginning, but it's going to kick on the volume.
The first two at this point. And because it seems like plaintiff is proceeding under a theory of defamation by implication, under the Pendleton case, 290 Virginia 162, plaintiff bears the burden of proving that the statements at issue were designed and intended by Ms. Heard to imply a defamatory meaning. Designed and intended to imply defamatory meaning. So, and to satisfy those first two elements, publication and falsity and defamation or defamatory nature of the statements, Mr. Depp bears the burden of proving that by a preponderance of the evidence. And to satisfy the requisite intent and show that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice, he has a heightened standard of proof that he must
New York
prove,
Beast, you got jokes.
And convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with that malice. So, just want to talk about the two statements on domestic abuse in the op-ed. And Your Honor's well aware of the ample Virginia case law talking about how you have to view the op-ed as a whole. You have to view words in context. So these are the statements that read, then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. And then the other statement that says, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Now, those statements are entirely opinion, except for, according to Mr. Depp, the discussion of domestic abuse. So the statement, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and the statement in the second sentence that Mr. Depp was a man accused of abuse. The rest of those are inactionable opinion statements. Now, the evidence adduced thus far, Your Honor, shows that Mr. Depp can't sustain a claim on these for two reasons. First of all, the statements are true on their face. I don't think that there's any dispute about that, and that's been the subject of some testimony in this case. 2 years before she wrote the op-ed, Ms. Heard did, in fact, become a public figure representing domestic abuse when she obtained a domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, and Mr. Depp was indeed accused of abuse. Those are facts that are true. Now, to the extent that Mr. Depp will argue that he's proceeding on a defamation by implication claim, again, the court should grant the motion to strike because the undisputed evidence is that he did, in fact, abuse Amber. Now, there's a dispute in this case. There's ample evidence that he physically abused Amber, but we acknowledge that there's a dispute in this case on that. But what there isn't a dispute in this case is non-physical abuse. Both Mr. Depp and his expert Shannon Curry have testified that abuse may come in many forms. It may be physical, certainly, but it may also be verbal, may be emotional, may be psychological. You'll recall Mr. Depp even kind of setting the baseline for what abuse was when he talked about the non-physical abuse that he allegedly suffered at the hands of his mother. He said it was worse than the beatings. And the example he gave was that his mom used to call him One Eye as an example because he had a lazy eye, I guess, as a child. That was something that Mr. Depp himself said was abuse, his mom calling him One Eye. So we setting aside the evidence of physical abuse in this case, which is already overwhelming, Mr. Depp's claims relating to these two statements should be stricken because of the ample and undisputed evidence in the record of non-physical abuse by Mr. Depp toward Ms. Heard.
These glasses stopped me from going blind. It all started with having blurry vision, eye fatigue, migraines, so bad to the point where I couldn't stare at a screen anymore, which is what I do for work. So I went to the
evidence in the record of recordings, messages, including messages written in blood with his finger, blood and paint, vile names, shouting, menacing and threatening statements. There's the video, the kitchen video in Sweetser. There's the audio of him calling Miss Heard, like I say, numerous vile names. There's the audio of him asking her to cut him and whether she wanted to be cut. So there's plenty of evidence out of the words or out of the mouth of the plaintiff in this case that constitutes non-physical abuse of Ms. Heard. Again, under the standards set forth by his expert and the plaintiff himself. Those are far worse than his mother calling him One Eye when he was a child. In addition to that, Your Honor, there's Travis McGivern's testimony from yesterday in which he testified that at a minimum on the night of March 23rd, 2015, both parties were being verbally abusive to each other. Mr. McGivern also testified about Mr. Depp, quote, rearranging her closet, throwing racks of clothing down onto the floor and throwing at least one rack down the stairs. Now, in California, property damage alone can be a basis for getting a temporary restraining order under California law. So further evidence of non-physical abuse or non-physical toward Ms. Heard. You saw the cupboards in the Sweetser kitchen video. And then Dr. Laurel Anderson, Your Honor, testified that she believed that the parties engaged in mutual abuse and that at least some of the time that was initiated by Mr. Depp. This is all evidence. We haven't gotten to put on our case yet. And to the extent that this case proceeds, and that will start now. But this is all evidence that has come in while plaintiff controls the playing field of what evidence has come in, and he can't overcome that. In this case, Your Honor, if Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard physically, verbally, emotionally, or psychologically even one time, then she wins on those claims. Then she wins. It's that simple. And the evidence is overwhelming and undisputed in the ways that I've just described that he did. So for that reason, Your Honor, those claims should be stricken. And I'll just cite the Union of Needle Trades versus Jones case. This is 268 Virginia 512 that states if the plaintiff does not establish the falsity of the statement by a preponderance of the evidence in his case in chief, he has not met his threshold burden, and the trial court should strike the evidence and grant summary judgment to the defendant. That's exactly what should happen here. Now I'll move on to the second issue, which is the headline containing the phrase sexual violence. That should be stricken for a couple reasons. First, Your Honor, the evidence has established that Ms. Heard didn't write the headline. Mr. Doherty from the ACLU, that's the only evidence that's come in this case thus far. Plaintiffs control the evidence.
Well, I understand, but there's also a stipulation that Ms. Heard would not be called in the plaintiff's case because they would then use her testimony for part of their case in your case, right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yeah, I agree. And that goes to a different issue that I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that the court should strike because they haven't put Ms. Heard on to testify about the headline.
But I assume part of that would be that they would, I guess they intend to get from Ms. Heard is that she either wrote it or republished it.
Yeah, what happened the next day is Ms. Heard posted it on her Instagram account and said, look what I published yesterday in the Washington Post. So she adopted the title and her name was on the article which contained the title.
And Mr. Ronborn, the only reason I'm sorry to only because I know that was a stipulation, so it's hard for me to say that that's all the evidence for motion to strike if there's a stipulation that they're still going to get more evidence in on that particular issue.
I think, and I'm happy to hand the court the transcript of the April 8th hearing, because one of the things that we're not arguing today is that because they haven't put in evidence of I think it was a tweet, but Mr. Chu says it was Instagram, I don't know, whatever it was, that because
Jack, today I'm just showing like different clips. And this clip here that I'm showing, it's basically Amber Heard's attorney motion to dismiss Johnny Depp's evidence. So this when both attorneys is going at it with each other. So I'm just like showing different clips of different things that happened this past few days with the trial. Good to see you. All right, resume.
There
it was a tweet adopting the op-ed she published the day before in the Washington Post.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm not arguing today is that because they haven't gotten that tweet into evidence or had Ms. Heard say that she tweeted that we're entitled to summary judgment at this point. I'm not arguing that, but that's all that we discussed on April 8th. And I'm happy to hand the transcript up, Your Honor. And we actually it wasn't a stipulation. It was simply an agreement that they didn't need to call her in their case in chief to make that point. And then Ms. Bredehoft said, we'd have to agree on the language of any stipulation. And they haven't proposed anything to us and haven't gotten back to us. So I think that that's only relevant. We're not basing our request for motion to strike here on Ms. Heard not having testified to sending that tweet.
But you're saying for the motion to strike, the only evidence before the court is that the Washington Post wrote that title.
Correct. And that's very different from what happened the next day. The stipulation didn't go toward who wrote the title. That was never part of anything. And it's undisputed. And Ms. Heard will testify that she didn't write the title.
Well, I understand that,
but I think it's not undisputed, Your Honor. I apologize for interrupting.
Okay. But I think the issue is whether it was republication.
Well, and I'll get to that next.
But I know, but the problem is, how do I do a motion to strike when that evidence isn't before me yet?
Well, the republication isn't. So the evidence that's before you is that the Washington Post wrote the headline or that Ms. Heard didn't. And that's the only evidence. And that's not going to change. The tweet, which was the only subject of the discussion of the pretrial conference, where there was no stipulation. It was just an agreement that we're not going to base a motion to strike on them not introducing evidence of the tweet. That was what it was. I'm happy to hand the transcript up if Your Honor would like to see that. But that isn't actionable because under the Lakova versus Halper case, 995 F3rd 134, retweeting a link doesn't constitute republication. Now that case,
it does if you add something to it, but add something to it, but I just don't know the evidence.
Your Honor, very quickly, it's a judicial admission. They admitted in Ms. Heard's answer, she admitted to the tweet. So that establishes that she adopted the op-ed in its entirety, and it was discussed. We talked about judicial admissions. One was the op-ed itself. The second, and this is reflected in
Your
the
Honor, if I could
transcript.
finish my argument, I mean,
I
I would
understand.
appreciate.
I can't wait to oppose this. anyway,
That's
so.
fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That,
Go ahead,
so,
sir.
and again, we can look at the transcript.
You understand my concern.
I do
though.
understand your concern, and I guess what I'm saying is that there's two levels. One is there's no dispute, and there's not going to be a dispute that she did not write the headline. So then you look at is the tweet actionable? And the argument here is that as a matter of law, retweeting something isn't actionable. And so, as under the Lakova case, 995 F3rd 134, in that case dealt with hyperlinks and how those aren't actionable. But to be very clear, nothing that was discussed on April 8th, nothing that was discussed at that pretrial conference was in any way relating to any stipulation about who wrote the headline. It was simply that they need not call Ms. Heard in their case in chief to get her to say that she sent a certain tweet. And that tweet's not in evidence yet, but I assume that they'll try to put it in evidence at some point. But the tweet doesn't need to be in evidence for you to strike this claim on that basis. So even assuming that the headline implied certain conduct by Mr. Depp, again, Mr. Depp can't meet his burden of proof on this. Third, Your Honor, he can't prove that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice. Mr. Depp hasn't introduced evidence sufficient to permit him to meet this. Now, again, this is a heightened burden of proof. He has to show actual malice by clear and convincing evidence. And as the
It's on their end that is mute, not me. It's on their end. It'll pop back on again.
Ms. Heard's intent on April 8th, which of course we didn't. But the only evidence that has been presented in this case, Your Honor, by Mr. Doherty was that the op-ed wasn't Ms. Heard's idea, that the ACLU asked her to write the op-ed, and indeed that they even wrote the first draft, and then that Ms. Heard vetted the finished article with her lawyers and with lawyers from the ACLU to make sure that it wasn't problematic. That is the only evidence in the record. And on that evidence,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me read the vote because I have a bad habit of forgetting. All righty. What was the vote? The question is, do you think when Amber Heard... Oh, I didn't pause it? Yeah, I did pause it. Okay. What did I write is the vote? All right. Do you think when Amber Heard's next week get cross-examined, she is going to snap? All right. We have 14 votes. 64% said absolutely. 14% said no way. And 21% said not sure. All right. I'm getting rid of this poll and I'm going to put up another one. All right. Now I will resume.
there cannot be a conclusion that Ms. Heard acted with the actual malice that's necessary, particularly when you consider the heightened burden of proof. So reviewing the op-ed as a whole, with the court acting in its appropriate function as a gatekeeper of the First Amendment, we ask that the court strike plaintiff's evidence and award summary judgment to Ms. Heard, either in whole or in part. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor. May it please the court, bench you for plaintiff Johnny Depp. It's just still morning. Your Honor, if I may approach.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've just handed to Mr. Rottenborn and Your Honor an opposition that we prepared before we had the benefit of seeing Ms. Heard's affirmative motion to strike, but I think we've anticipated the arguments made, such as they are. The court should deny defendant Amber Heard's motion to strike because Mr. Depp has come forward in his case in chief with multiple credible witnesses, documents, and authentic tape recordings of Ms. Heard herself, not only satisfying all of the requisite elements of his claim for defamation, including actual malice, but also going the extra mile of showing that Ms. Heard physically abused him. She's the abuser in this courtroom. Your Honor, going back to the standard, as Your Honor is well aware, in considering a motion to strike, the trial court must view the evidence and all reasonable inferences drawn from the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff. Any reasonable doubt as to whether the plaintiff has produced sufficient evidence of the wrong alleged must be resolved in the plaintiff's favor and the motion to strike denied, unquote. And that's the Boeing case, I believe Mr. Rottenborn referred to, 243 Virginia 81 at 81, 1992. Quote, the weight and credibility of the testimony of witnesses are solely matters for the jury. The jury may accept that part of the testimony it believes and reject that which it does not. It is also within the exclusive province of the jury to draw any reasonable inferences from the evidence before it, citing Rate versus Minix, 275 Virginia 579 at 585.
Daily Harvest, you have made my life 10 times easier. It's breakfast time, banana.
In deference and respect to the court's time, Mr. Depp incorporates by reference the legal analysis set forth in the court's opinion letter dated March 27, 2020, overruling Ms. Heard's demurrer to the 3 defamatory statements at issue. And that letter opinion is attached as Exhibit 1 to Mr. Depp's opposition. That's where the court fulfilled its proper gatekeeping role that Mr. Rottenborn referred to. As a threshold matter, the elements of a defamation claim are the following: publication of an actionable statement with the requisite intent, citing the Shaker versus Bonfault case, 290 Virginia 81 at 91. As to damages, they are presumed here because Ms. Heard's false allegations of domestic abuse, sexual assault, and rape constitute defamation per se, citing the Tronfield case, 272 Virginia 709 713, a 2006 case. As the court noted at page 3 of its opinion letter, typically an editorial or op-ed column is ordinarily not actionable because it appears in a place devoted to or in a manner usually thought of as representing personal viewpoints. However, Virginia recognizes that, quote, a defamatory charge may be made by inference, implication, or insinuation, citing the Carwell case. And a statement expressing a defamatory meaning may not be apparent on its face, citing Pendleton, with which the court is quite familiar, 290 Virginia at 172. Accordingly, in order to render words defamatory and actionable, it is not necessary that the defamatory charge be in direct terms, but may be made indirectly, and it matters not how artful or disguised the modes in which the meaning is concealed, if it is in fact defamatory. Carwell 196 Virginia at 7. And based on the authority and reasoning set forth in pages 4 through 8 of the opinion letter, the 3 statements at issue are actionable under a theory of defamation by implication. Mr. Depp established in his case in chief that Ms. Heard in fact made all 3 of the defamatory statements at issue. As the court admitted into evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, the op-ed Ms. Heard published in her own name in the Washington Post on December 18th, 2018. And let's take the 3 statements and the proof that has been adduced. Statement number 1, Amber Heard, quote, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. Per page 6 of the opinion letter, the first statement could reasonably convey the alleged defamatory meaning, i.e. that Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, to its readers without extending the words beyond their ordinary and common acceptation. See Pendleton 290 Virginia at 172, also citing the Carwell case. Resolving every fair inference in Mr. Depp's favor, this statement could reasonably imply that the sexual violence Ms. Heard spoke up against was in fact perpetrated by Mr. Depp. Mr. Depp produced several credible witnesses and documents proving that Ms. Heard was implying that he committed sexual violence against her. Mr. Depp himself testified to that, as did his sister, Christy Dombrowski. Mr. Depp's former agent, Christian Carino, testified that, as did his current agent, Jack Wiggum. But perhaps most convincing of all, and most disgusting of all, was the testimony of the ACLU's Terrence Doherty, a lawyer nonetheless. Mr. Doherty testified, among other things, that when the op-ed, when they were pitching the op-ed to the Washington Post, they stated, "Hey, Michael, wondering if we might interest you in a piece by Amber Heard, who, as you may recall, was beaten up during her brief marriage to Johnny Depp, on what the incoming Congress can do to help protect women in similar situations." Mr. Doherty also testified that everybody understood, as Ms. Heard and the ACLU clearly intended, that this statement and the other two statements referred directly to Mr. Depp. Quote, "This is an article that was in USA Today and specifically ties Amber's statement in her op-ed piece to Johnny Depp." And when Jessica Weitz, who actually wrote the op-ed that Ms. Heard later adopted, she says, quote, to Mr. Doherty, "So much for not mentioning JD," when the USA Today made clear that they, like everybody else who read the op-ed, understood that, as Ms. Heard clearly intended, it referred to Mr. Depp, which makes her Instagram post 2 days before the trial began, that she didn't mention Mr. Depp, all the more outrageous. Your Honor, there is Ms. Schulman, also of the ACLU, acknowledged that Ms. Heard's op-ed referred to Mr. Depp. So it's very clear that the ACLU and Ms. Heard intended, that was the whole purpose of this, so that they could get interest in this and it would coincide with the premiere of Aquaman, because otherwise no one would have been interested in anything written by Ms. Heard. Mr. Doherty also testified that Ms. Heard only paid 1.3, actually she didn't even pay all that, out of the $3.5 million that she had pledged to the ACLU, and then they helped her lie about it. And it's one thing, Your Honor, for her to stiff the ACLU, which frankly played a reprehensible role in this case. It's quite another for her to fail to honor her obligation to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles with sick and dying children, and that she failed to do as well. And as Your Honor has mentioned, the fact that she put her name on that article means that she is responsible for all of those statements, which she specifically adopted later. And I'll go through the other two statements quickly, Your Honor.
Well, can we stay on this one for one moment, though?
Yes, Your Honor.
Because do you agree that the only evidence before that we've heard in this trial, as far as the title of the op-ed, is that even Mr. Doherty, I believe, testified to it, that it was something that Washington Post wrote?
Well,
for the one online.
He's not our witness, Your Honor. That's a witness from the ACLU.
Well, I understand, but it's the only evidence I have.
I respectfully disagree, Your Honor.
All right.
What the only real evidence Your Honor has is Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, which is Amber Heard putting her name on the entire article, including the title. That is the only evidence before you. The ACLU was a co-conspirator with Ms. Heard, and whether they say, oh, maybe the Washington Post wrote it, that's not the end of the story. All she has done is create an issue of fact as to whether she wrote the title or not.
So you're saying just having that exhibit in evidence is enough?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Her name is on the article. Okay. What does an average reader expect? So that alone is sufficient to beat a motion to strike. If they want to come back later and say, gee, she didn't write the title, as if that were a defense, I hope they make that argument. I hope they make that argument to the jury, because it's about as credible as her argument that, oh, I wasn't referring to Johnny Depp. She didn't have to. And the testimony of Terrence Doherty was very clear that when they took out the references to Johnny Depp, no one was interested in this article anymore. So she said, put it back in, make it more spicy so people would read. Otherwise, she couldn't get it in the Washington Post. It would be back in Teenage Vogue, which is the other publication that was considering publishing it, because no one was interested in what she had to say unless she was defaming Mr. Depp. But if I could go to the second statement, I'll try to be quick, Your Honor. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. As for the second statement, defendant called herself a public figure representing domestic abuse, which can be read to imply that she became a representative of domestic abuse because she was abused by Mr. Depp, not just because she spoke out against alleged abuse. This inference can be drawn without extending the language beyond its ordinary common acceptation, citing Carwile, 196, Virginia at 8. Your Honor, quote, to constitute a publication, it is not necessary that the contents of the writing should be made known to the public generally. It is enough, it is said, if they are made known to a single person, unquote, citing Snyder versus Fatherly, 158, Virginia, 335 at 350. Everybody and his grandmother testified that Ms. Heard was referring to her bogus ex parte TRO that she obtained on May 27th, 2016. And it was interesting that Mr. Depp's own lawyer said that she wasn't even provided notice. So Ms. Heard made very sure that Mr. Depp wouldn't have notice of the ex parte TRO. And Ms. Heard herself, the evidence shows, knew that Mr. Depp, having just suffered the loss of his mother, was already on the other side of the country, was already in New York at the time of this TRO, and was heading to Europe for several weeks. So she knew she didn't need any protection from him. This was just a scam for her to get the $7 million in the divorce settlement that she said she gave to the ACLU. She swore she gave to the ACLU and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, and she pocketed instead. Mr. Depp, Ms. Dombrowski, Mr. Carino, Mr. Wiggum, and the inimitable Mr. Doherty of the ACLU, which lent its once respected name to Ms. Heard's defamation.
Hey, Art in the house.
So while Ms. Heard may have avoided any direct mention of Mr. Depp's name, there is extensive testimony and evidence in the record showing that the implication of her op-ed could not be more clear, i.e., that Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard during the course of their marriage. Under Virginia law, quote, it is not necessary that the defamatory charge be in direct terms, but it may be made indirectly. And it matters not how artful or disguised the modes in which the meaning is concealed if it is in fact defamatory. Citing Carwile.
Art, make sure you get your vote in. Vote.
But the implication was very clear, as the court has previously ruled, or not law of the case, but as the court has persuasively written in its opinion letter. Let's move to the falsity of Ms. Heard's ever-evolving and ever-escalating change of IPV and sexual assault. Mr. Depp's sworn denial is all he needs to survive a motion to strike, but there's a lot more than that, Your Honor, and I'll try to be brief. 3 police officers, actually 4, but the 3 who testified already, Officers Sines, Haddon, and Gatlin, testified unequivocally that Ms. Heard did not have a mark on her on the evening of May 21, 2016. And I could go through, I'll just go through very quickly. Officer Haddon, strike that. Officer Melissa Sines on jury trial day 10. Question, did you provide a copy of this pamphlet to Amber Heard? Answer, I did not. I didn't identify her as a victim of domestic abuse. The next day, Officer Melissa Sines. Okay, at this time, did you notice any injuries on Ms. Heard? Officer Sines, I did not. Question, okay, were you looking to see if she had any injuries on her at the time? Officer Sines, yes, I was. Question. And so you were looking to see if Ms. Heard had any injuries and you determined that she did not. Is that accurate? Officer Science. Correct. Question. Okay. And was the lighting good enough in the hallway for you to make that determination? Answer. Yes, the hallway was well lit. Officer Gatlin's testimony was the same, and he had the body cam. Officer Haddon's testimony was the same. The testimony of nurses Debbie Lloyd and Erin Borem, who, like the police officers, did not work for Mr. Depp. In fact, they worked for Dr. Kipper, also belie Ms. Heard's false allegations of abuse. Isaac Baruch and Alejandro Romero both testified that they saw Ms. Heard repeatedly and in the clear light between May 21, 2021, which was the last time Mr. Depp saw her before leaving on the Hollywood Vampires tour. The next time he was to see her was when Ms. Heard begged him to come see her in San Francisco, which is hardly the act of a domestic abuse victim. So we have Isaac Baruch and Mr. Romero saying that they saw Ms. Heard repeatedly in the interval of time between May 21 and May 27th, when she obtained the farce ex parte TRO, and they saw no marks on her face and no swelling. Two witnesses, Mr. Baruch and Brandon Patterson, saw the video of Ms. Heard and her sister Whitney pantomiming the fake punch after this alleged incident of abuse. Ms. Heard's former personal assistant, Kate James, and several other witnesses, including Dr. David Kipper, saw no violence by Mr. Depp and no injuries to Ms. Heard. Indeed, witness after witness has come forward to testify that Ms. Heard, far from being a domestic figure representing domestic violence, unquote, is in fact a recidivist perpetrator of domestic violence on Mr. Depp and others. We have the testimony, the harrowing testimony of Mr. Depp himself, who described several witnesses. One, as Your Honor will recall, when he was hiding in the bathroom after escaping one of her attacks, and she claims to have hurt her foot kicking the door. Mr. Depp opens the door to see if she's hurt, and then she kicks the door in on him and punches him. We have the incident of December 15, 2015, when Ms. Heard threw punches at him wildly at the back and side of his head. Mr. Depp testified that he ducked and covered to protect his face. Eventually, he turned around to grab her and stop her arms from flailing. December 15 in the Bahamas, during an argument, Ms. Heard grabbed a can of mineral spirits and threw it at Mr. Depp's face, striking him in the forehead, bridge, and nose area, and the jury saw a photograph of the bridge on the bruise of his nose. We have testimony from Mr. And by the way, Tara Roberts, who is the manager of the island.
To the ladies and gentlemen that's coming in, welcome to Donna Just Being Real. I'm glad to have you here. And please hit the like button because that really helps out the content creator. And also feel free to engage, share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. And also if you like or you just want to listen, because I know a lot of people's at work right now. Today I'm off, so some people might be at work and they're just listening in. I greatly appreciate you being here. But don't forget, hit the like. I resume.
Confirmed that the incident with the mineral spirits. You have Mr. Depp's testimony of what happened on April 22nd, 2016. And we've heard testimony today from Erin Borem-Filati that Mr. Depp was very responsive, was very sociable, was not in any way inebriated that day when Ms. Heard says he was, and she attacked him that night as well. And I'm getting to the end of this, Your Honor. We have we have Ms. Heard's own admissions. We have her admitting to hitting Mr. Depp, and her only contention was that she wasn't punching him, she was just hitting him. We have testimony from Travis McGivern that on February 23rd, 2015, Ms. Heard threw and hit Mr. Depp with a can of Red Bull and then sucker punched him with a closed fist. Finally, we have.
Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear that? She threw a can of Red Bull at him and sucker punched him with a closed fist. That's what one of his bodyguards, I think that was the bodyguard with the silver beard that testified. This woman is completely out of her flipping mind. Dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're dating someone, you have to look out for the red flag, because I know, Johnny, there was red flags when you was dating. But it has a lot to do with your childhood, because you grew up with a lot of abuse. You saw your father being abused mentally and physically by your mother, and then she did the same thing to you and your siblings. So you end up following the pattern. And what usually happens is when you grew up in an abusive household, either you're going to become an abuser or you're going to let somebody abuse you. How they say typically, normally the boys grow up in an abusive home, they'll end up becoming men and be an abuser. And the women will let men abuse them. But in some cases, it's not like that. It could be vice versa or whatever. It just depends. But usually this is what happens, when you grow up in an abusive household. It could be verbal abuse. It could be physical abuse, emotional. There's all kind of forms of abuse, but all of them is not good, because everyone can have an effect on you. And I think that's what happened to Johnny Depp, because when I heard the testimony of his sister was talking about what he went through and how the mother would mock them and make fun of him, because I think he had like a weak eye or something, and and he had a patch on it and make fun of your own mother. I mean, first of all, in life, children, they have to deal with a lot of teasing in school and go through this and do that when they're little. But when they come home, you don't expect it from your mommy and daddy. That's supposed to be a place of peace. And even for adults, adults, you have to deal with the outside world being cruel and being manipulative and abusive towards you. But when you come home to your wife or to your girlfriend or to your husband or to your boyfriend, you shouldn't be hearing this crap. It's not supposed to happen. Some people not everybody comes into your life, ladies and gentlemen, with good intentions. A lot of people don't. And there's some people that are so evil and wicked, they will hold up a mask for a good year. You could be dating somebody for a good year and they'll hold up a mask. There'll be little cracks. You got to watch out for those cracks. And they'll hold up a mask. But when you find out and realize it's time to ghost them, and I know it's hard because some people get trauma bond. They've been in a relationship so long, they get trauma bond. They scared to leave. They think they can't get nobody else because this person doesn't manipulate your mind and make it seem like nobody else is going to want you but me. But that's a whole nother story. Let me resume. If you like more information about that, feel free to email me. It's in the description, or it's in the about page. And if you need a coach, anything, any questions or viewers request videos, let me know. My channel is all about dating, love, relationship, toxic relationship. Feel free. And everything is confidential. Let me put that confidential. I resume.
The rather stunning testimony of Ben King, quite a credible witness who accompanied Ms. Heard on the flight back from Australia, where Ms. Heard admits to him in a rhetorical question, quote, "Did you ever totally lose it on someone you love?" Which was, we would respectfully submit, an admission of her severing the top or the tip of Mr. Depp's finger. Finally, Your Honor, statement number 3, quote, "I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse." Again, quoting very briefly from page 7 of the court's opinion letter, quote, "Drawing every fair inference in plaintiff's favor, the court can fairly conclude the defendant's statement that she saw how institutions protect men accused of abuse could reasonably convey to its recipients that she saw how Mr. Depp was protected by institutions, that he abused her and spoke up against it." Your Honor, again, we have multiple testimony from multiple people, including Jack Wiggum and all the others mentioned, that this was a reference to that. Your Honor, again, the lies.
And his lawyer is right, because there's multiple testimonies of abuse from Amber Heard to Johnny Depp, but I maybe I missed it. Like I said, I haven't caught every day that they have, so I'm trying to catch up. Especially we have this whole week off before they go back to court, but I haven't heard anything from her end of testimonies that they said that Johnny Depp was physically abusive to her in any kind of way. But there's plenty of testimonies on Johnny Depp's side, and bodyguards see a lot. And there's other witnesses and your mental evaluation, Amber Heard. A mess. I resume.
That have already been exposed, that Ms. Heard has told about the charitable contributions, the incidents in this case. And again, I'll just cite a couple of more. The testimony of Isaac Baruch, when Mr. Baruch saw Ms. Heard on June 3, after she'd gone through with the sham ex-party.
And we're going to start off with the Air Slim Shaper Pants Removable Abdominal Binder.
TRO, and Mr. Baruch was asked, did she say anything in response? And Mr. Baruch testified, yeah. In response to that, she, meaning Ms. Heard, looks at me and said, I told Johnny I don't want anything. The lawyers are making me do all of this. And that's what she said. Well, the lawyers are making her do all of that. And apparently she wanted the $7 million for herself. She even lied about the final insult left on the marital bed after her 30th birthday party. And it was quite telling that she admitted to Starling Jenkins, a former United States Marine, that this was a terrible prank gone awry. Well, she lied about that too. In fact, she said Mr. Depp was crazy to even allege that she could have done such a thing. Well, she admitted it to Mr. Jenkins. Per Tronfield, as cited earlier, Mr. Depp does not have to prove damages because this is defamation per se. In fact, these involve some of the most heinous crimes any man or woman can be accused of. However, he has done so. Jack Wiggum tested yesterday that the impact of the op-ed was catastrophic on Mr. Depp's personal and professional life, that it was a $22.5 million loss on Pirate 6 and another $20 million on others. We've had the...
You have a point, Art, and she's not a good one at it either. Not good at it. You need some classes. Improve your storytelling.
Lost on the other films, the other studio films, the indie films, and the other ways Mr. Depp would have made income. We have Richard Martz's testimony, Douglas Banya's testimony, and the testimony of Michael Spindler just this morning. Finally, Your Honor, none of Ms. Heard's affirmative defenses, which would include, her trying to create an issue of fact on the title, can support a motion to strike, as to which she bears the burden of proof of her affirmative defenses. Quote, whether the defendants have met their burden cannot be resolved when considering a motion to strike. See 243 Virginia at 83. And just to respond to Mr. Rottenborn's citation to the Lakova case, which we hadn't seen until he mentioned it today, I would only note, Your Honor, that defendant admits that she tweeted a link to the online version of the op-ed at paragraph 97 of her answer, though again, the admission of Exhibit 1 is more than enough to survive the motion to strike. And the Lakova case at 995 F3rd 134 holds that republishing a hyperlink doesn't necessarily start the statute of limitations, not that a hyperlink cannot be defamatory. So with that, Your Honor, we respectfully request that the court deny the motion to strike in full, and let's hear from Ms. Hurd. Thank you, Your
Yes,
Honor.
sir. Thank you. Your motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can only assume that Mr. Chu wrote that speech for an audience outside the court because it didn't really address my arguments. I'm going to focus on what our specific arguments are for the motion to strike, Your Honor. Mr. Chu spent almost 30 minutes of the court's time talking about the disputed evidence of physical abuse in this case, which Ms. Hurd hasn't even put on her case. And I can tell you she's not the abuser. And if the case moves forward, she and her witnesses will put on even more evidence of the physical abuse she suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. But that's not the basis for our motion right now, Your Honor. He talks about how Mr. Depp had a sworn denial and that should count. We read his testimony. He claims he didn't strike her. But again, that's not the basis for our motion. The basis for our motion is the clear and undisputed evidence of non-physical abuse. By his definitions, by his standards, by the standards of his expert, there is no dispute that Mr. Depp abused Amber. And therefore, if he did it even one time, there's no dispute that even under their theory of the case, the implication that they want the jury to draw from the article, which again, I'm not arguing for the purposes of today, because under the legal standard, I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to waste the court's time with that. But even under their standard, the undisputed evidence is that Mr. Depp did commit abuse against Ms. Hurd, and therefore that those first two statements were false. That's our argument on that. As to the headline, it's funny, Mr. Chu, we played 2 or 3 hours of an ACLU deposition. Now he says, well, that wasn't our witness. It was his witness, Your Honor. He just spent 10 minutes talking about what Mr. Doherty said. And Mr. Doherty testified that the Washington Post wrote the headline. That is the only evidence, Your Honor. I understand he says, well, Exhibit 1 has her name on it. Exhibit 1 has her name on it. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's testimony. It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on it. They could have called Ms. Hurd for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial conference. It was only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Hurd will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't have helped them. But they've had 3 weeks to put on their case, Your Honor. They've controlled the playing field of evidence. There is no dispute that.
Are bugs invading your home? Whether it's roaches, ants, fleas, bed bugs, or any other filthy insect.
That Ms. Hurd did not write that headline. No dispute. Simply saying, well, her name is attached to it, that can't overcome the testimony of the ACLU. They call them a co-conspirator. Of course, Mr. Depp chose not to sue them. But the testimony of Terrence Doherty that she didn't write that headline, that takes care of the sexual violence headline, Your Honor. And I'm not going to take up any more of the court's time addressing portions of Mr. Depp or Mr. Chu's argument that don't go to our motion, unless Your Honor has any specific questions. But
No,
I want to
thank
be
you.
respectful.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. For this motion, I've taken the arguments of counsel, and last night I reviewed all of the evidence that has been submitted in this matter. So as to the second and third alleged defamatory statements, at the motion to strike at this juncture, I view the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff and reasonable inferences from the evidence to the plaintiff. And if there is a scintilla of evidence that a reasonable juror could weigh, then the matter survives a motion to strike. In this matter, there is evidence in the case that a jury could weigh that the statements were made by the defendant, that the statements were about the plaintiff, that the statement was published, that the statement is false, and the defendant made the statement knowing it to be false, or the defendant made it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth. The weight of that evidence is up to the fact finder. So the motion to strike is denied as to statement 2 and 3. The motion to strike as to statement 1, I'm going to take under advisement because if it's not a stipulation, I'm not sure what it is, but there seems to be an agreement that the tweet of Ms. Hurd is part of the plaintiff's evidence, which is not in evidence at this point. So I can't rule on that statement whether or not it is just a tweet or if it's some sort of republication or something. I don't know because I haven't seen it yet. So as to the motion to strike on statement 1, I'm going to take an advisement because ruling on it now, it would be premature because I just don't have that evidence in the case. Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
All right. Since it's 12:30, you want to just take lunch? Go ahead and let the jurors go to lunch and come back at 1:30.
Okay, that was the clip there. And I also put down if anybody's into like animations, I do animations on, dating and relationships, is a thriller, suspense kind of thing. So check it out. You might like it. Let me know. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section for the videos. And I'm going to continue my animations too, again, because I have to finish the last one, The Joker. Will Detective Jack Newtown save Nikki Justice? We have to find out. All right. And I'm gonna show another clip, and then that's gonna be the last clip. If there's any clips y'all have that you want me to show, let me know about this case. I will show it, but I'm gonna show this one because this clip here, it's about what is this one about? This clip here is about Johnny Depp lost 40 million plus in earnings from Pirates of Caribbean 6, says Examiner. I didn't see this one. This was probably more in the beginning. All right, so I'm gonna show this clip, and that will be the last one. Okay. Unless it's some other clip I might show. We'll just see, but that'll probably be the last one. All right. Listen to the music while I go and set it up, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have the clip. And once again, I said this clip is about Johnny Depp lost 40 million plus in earnings from Pirates of the Caribbean 6, says Examiner. Wow, that's a lot of money. And he got bills to pay like everybody else. You got to keep up all the housekeeping and all this crap. All right, let's get it. This clip is like about 20 minutes long, so I'm going to put on faster speed. All right, let's get it.
Did you draw from your review?
I concluded that Mr. Depp suffered lost earnings of approximately $40 million.
How did you reach that conclusion?
Well, there are really two main components to that. The first relates to the loss of the role of Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates 6 film. So the loss related to the loss of that role in that franchise picture was $22.5 million based on testimony provided by Mr. Jack Wiggum. In addition, we looked at, yes?
Did you do anything else with respect to Pirates 6?
Well, we also calculated the net earnings that Mr. Depp would have received from that.
Okay. And what did you base your analysis of Pirates 6 on?
Based on the testimony of Mr. Jack Wiggum.
Okay. What else did you do with respect to the lost earning analysis that you did?
Well, the other main component to this is taking a look at all the other roles, the non-franchise films. So those films, studio films, independent films, and endorsements that Mr. Depp realizes and enjoys. So in connection with that, we looked at his bookings for the year 2017. And by bookings, I mean instances where Mr. Depp is hired for a project. And he receives that first money related to that project in 2017. So in other words, you've got a deal and cash has showed up, so it's real. So we looked at his 2017 bookings and we calculated for that year, for that period, his bookings were about $17.5 million. The main components of that, Mr. Wiggum testified to. We then looked at the period of time following the op-ed of December 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020. So if annual earnings was $17.5 million in what is known as a typical year, a reasonable base year, at that rate, what would we have expected Mr. Depp to have earned from that period of October 18th, 2018 through October 31st, 2020? And we then compared that to his bookings, his actual bookings for that period of time.
Why did you use 2017 as a typical base year?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, Mr. Wiggum testified that that was a typical year for Mr. Depp. And it's also the most recent clean year that was experienced. In 2018, you had the publication of the op-ed. That didn't happen in 2017.
Okay. Did you prepare anything to assist the jury with respect to the analysis that you performed?
We did prepare a chart, yes.
Do you want to
There are two types of
approach?
All right, yes, sir. Good.
Thank you.
You know, I think this is.
Hey, lady, welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm not going to move it into evidence. I'm simply just going to use it with your permission to publish it to the jury so that the witness can explain it.
Any objection to demonstrative 1240? All right, demonstrative. Well, do you have electronic copy of it? Okay, that's fine.
We do. Okay. Who did this chart?
I, in combination with people working under my direction from my firm.
All right. Can you explain to the jury what you've done here?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as we discussed previously, Mr. Depp lost the role in Pirates 6. And the effect of that was lost earnings of $22.5 million based on Mr. Wiggum's testimony. And then what we've shown here is the 10% agent commission.
So why did you deduct 10%?
Because that's the rate for Mr. Depp's agent. That's what his agent receives out of Mr. Depp's earnings in connection with setting up a project for Mr. Depp. So we deduct that 10%, which comes to $2,250,000, just 10% of $22.5 million. And the net effect of that, the amount that Mr. Depp would have received after deducting that fee would have been $20,250,000. And that's the first component of this.
What did you do in terms of the analysis of lost bookings for non-franchise films?
Okay, so that's the next section of the chart. And as I mentioned before, his 2017 bookings were about $17.5 million. So that rate of earnings over the period from mid-December through the end of October 2020, or mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020, would come to about $32.8, $32.9 million. Then we then compared that to actual bookings during that period of time of mid-December 2018 through the end of October 2020. That amount was $10,586,000. We deducted those bookings, the actual amounts from what we would have expected, to arrive at his lost bookings for non-franchise activity, and that comes to about $22.3 million. And once again, we've deducted the 10% agent's commission. So the net effect, the lost earnings to Mr. Depp after that agent's fee for non-pirate films comes to about $20 million.
What does the figure at the bottom corner of the chart, the $40,318,237, what does that represent?
Well, that's your grand total. That's the sum of those two components for total lost earnings of $40.3 million.
No further questions, Sean.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Spindler.
Good morning.
So this lawsuit isn't the first time you've worked with Johnny Depp, is it?
It is not.
You've worked with him in a lawsuit that he had in the past with his old law firm, correct?
Yes, just a little bit of work, yes.
And so in this second go round as a paid expert for Mr. Depp, you're making what, $550 an hour is what he's paying you? Is that right?
That's the amount that my firm bills. I do not receive that.
Now, the subject matter of your opinion testimony in this case is the economic damages that Mr. Depp has allegedly suffered as a result of Ms. Heard's December 8, 2018 op-ed, correct?
Correct, yes.
And this is the first case in which you've testified as an expert relating to economic damages claimed by an actor, correct?
First time I've testified to, but I've done that work before.
And you understand that this case is about only whether Ms. Heard's December 18th, 2018 op-ed constitutes defamation of Mr. Depp, correct?
That's my understanding.
And you understand that this case isn't about anything else Ms. Heard has ever said or done, correct?
I believe that's correct.
And to be clear, you were testifying only as to alleged damages, right?
Correct.
So you are not offering any opinion or any testimony on whether those specific damages that you just discussed were caused by the op-ed, correct?
That's correct.
And you're assuming for the purposes of your report that the damages that you're testifying about were caused by Amber's op-ed, correct?
Yes.
So you're therefore not looking into whether anything else that's happened with Mr. Depp's life or career could have caused him economic damages, correct?
I believe that's generally correct, yes.
So you're not looking at whether the article published in the UK in June 2018 calling Mr. Depp a wife beater caused him the damages, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the lawsuit that he brought in the UK against the publisher of that article caused him those damages, right?
Correct.
You're not looking at any of the evidence that came out in that lawsuit about alleged instances of abuse against Amber, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the consequences of Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol use have caused him the damages you're discussing, correct?
Correct.
You're not looking at whether the worsening performance at the box office of Mr. Depp's movies over time has caused him the damages that you're testifying about, correct?
All right, since we got all this correct. If I'm correct, this man's been doing alcohol and drugs for years. I think since he was 12, I think. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm just following up on old clips. So I don't think now all of a sudden it's going to affect his career. Correct? I resume.
Correct. And I'm not acknowledging any of this being accurate. I'm just saying that wasn't part of my calculations.
Sure, I understand. I just want to make clear what you didn't look at, what you're not opining on. And so to round that out, you're not considering even the impact of Amber obtaining a restraining order in May 2016 and whether that may have caused him damages. That's
Hey, look at you. Floors by day, student by night. Student by day,
your opinion, correct?
Well, since we were taking a look at lost bookings using 2017 as a base year, any activity that preceded that would have been baked into those calculations that way.
And we'll get to those calculations in a minute because I'm going to put up the chart that you put in your expert report. But first I want to talk about Pirate 6 because that's basically the two components of your damages is Pirate 6 and then this non-franchise lost bookings, right?
Correct.
So for Pirate 6 specifically, you assume that he would have made $22.5 million on Pirate 6, right?
Correct.
And you took Jack Wigham's word for it in making that assumption, correct?
I based it on his testimony, yes.
Now, you never saw a contract that Mr. Depp had for Pirate 6, correct?
Correct.
Because no contract exists, to your knowledge, correct?
So far as I know, I've not seen one.
And you didn't take into consideration Jack Wigham's testimony that Disney was non-committal about Mr. Depp being in Pirate 6 even before the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't take into consideration the press articles that came out prior to the op-ed that suggested that Disney had made a decision not to cast Mr. Depp in Pirate 6, correct?
Correct.
And you have no idea whether Pirate 6 will ever be made, right?
I wouldn't know that.
And you have no idea if Disney has decided one way or the other whether Mr. Depp would be in it or whether they'd offer him a role in it if it is ever made, correct?
Well, my understanding is that they made a public statement that he would not.
Okay. And you have, if Disney decided that he wouldn't be in it, you have no idea when they decided that, correct?
I know that there was a public announcement subsequent to the publication of the op-ed.
What public announcement are you talking about?
I believe there was an interview of Mr. Bailey that was published several days after.
Oh, okay. Well, that interview with Mr. Bailey didn't say that he wasn't going to be in it. In fact, have you looked at the article that the jury saw the headline for yesterday, dated November 5th, 2020, about Mr. Depp potentially not being in Pirate 6? Have you looked at that article? I assume not.
No.
Okay. And you didn't take into account Mr. Depp's statement that he wouldn't do Pirate 6 for $300 million and $1 million out pockets, correct?
That sounded like hyperbole to me. I didn't take that very seriously. It sounded like somebody who was a bit hurt or in pain as a result of the loss of the role.
So if Mr. Depp didn't lose a role in Pirate 6 because of the op-ed, but he lost it for other reasons, then your damages opinion relating to Pirate 6 would drop to $0, correct?
I believe that's correct. If it's not lost for that reason, if it's lost for some other independent reason, then I think that would need to be considered.
Okay, thank you. Now let's shift gears and talk about the non-franchise earnings for a moment. You claim this number is about $21 million, right? Roughly.
20.
We'll pull it up. Well, actually, we'll look at the chart here. $20 million, about $20 million after agent fees.
Correct.
Right? Okay. And to reach that number, you looked at what his historical earnings records showed, right?
Correct.
And you got that information from Ed White's office?
Yes.
And you assumed that the information you got from Ed White's office was accurate, right?
I did, yes.
Can we please pull up the chart that's in his expert report? Your Honor, this is, or Mr. Spindler, I'd like you to take a look at this and confirm for the court that this is the chart that's in your expert report, if you would.
It appears to be, yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish this just as a demonstrative.
Any
No
objection? All right.
So, Mr. Spindler, this chart shows Mr. Depp's earnings by year based on the information that you received from Ed White, correct?
Correct.
From 2009 to 2020?
Yes.
And it shows that from about 2009 to 2019, and I didn't add these up visually, but from your report, you say that Mr. Depp made about $459 million, correct?
Correct.
Now, the two highest earning years in this time period were 2010 and 2011, right?
Yes.
You see that? You made about $70 million in 2010.
I do, yes.
And then the third highest year was 2014, right?
Yes.
Shade under 60 million. And you'd agree that from the period 2010 to 2020, his annual income on average was decreasing.
Yes, but you have to take a look at the components of this.
Right.
And
And in
as we-
2000, I was just wanted to get your agreement that from 2010 to 2020, his annual income was decreasing. Now, in 2020, he earned more than he did in 2016, correct?
On an overall basis, yes.
And in 2020, he earned more than he did in 2018, correct?
Yes, just
After the
based on
op-ed.
earnings.
And in 2018 and 2019, he earned almost identical amount, correct?
Yes,
And
just based on
2019 and
earnings.
2020 were both after the publication date of the op-ed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now I want to talk about some of these non-franchise earnings because when I looked at your chart that was displayed to the jury, I didn't see anything specific listed. So can you just confirm for me that you can't name a single lost business opportunity other than Pirate 6 that Mr. Depp lost as a result of the op-ed?
That's correct. That's
And
not the
you can't
nature of this
identify
calculation.
A single television, just if you could just answer my questions, yes or no, as best you can, please. You can't identify a single television project that Mr. Depp allegedly lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct. That's not the
And
nature
you
of this.
can't identify a single advertising campaign or marketing opportunity that Mr. Depp lost out on as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Right. These are the calls.
So
that we did
it's
not
fair to
receive.
say that for the lost opportunities that you can't name,
Save 20% on your entire purchase every day.
assuming, as with Pirate 6, that those opportunities were lost because of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned something interesting in your direct and in your report. You say that you used 2017 as the base year to calculate what you claim Mr. Depp's should have earned in 2019 and 20, correct?
Correct.
And let's take a look at this because 2017, he made that much, correct? About 45 million or so?
Yes.
But in 2016, he made just a shade over 20, correct?
Correct.
2018, he made a shade under 20, right?
Yes.
Same with 2019, right?
Correct.
And then 2020, he actually made more than he had in the prior 2 years or in 2016 and made about, what, 22, 23 million or so? Is that right?
Right. But as I indicated, this is
So-
just based on earnings. You need to get behind it.
Right. So you said, there were a couple interesting things you said. You said that the most recent, that 2017, I want to explore why you relied on that. Now, first of all, you said that you relied on Jack Wiggum's testimony that 2017 was a reasonable year to use, correct?
Correct.
Despite the fact that 2017, he made more than twice as much as he's made in any year over the last 5 years, correct?
Yes,
And
but when
say
you
that
take a
this
look
is the
at
most
their,
recent-
if I can
no,
finish
you
this
answer
thought.
my question. No, well, I want to get to your thoughts because you said that one of the reasons you used 2017 was because it was you said, I wrote down, the most recent clean year. right?
Correct.
And then I think you explained, you said because the op-ed was written in 2018, right?
Correct.
But the op-ed wasn't written until December 18th, 2018, correct?
Yes.
So if 2017 was clean, then the first 352 days of 2018 were also clean, weren't they, sir?
If I may explain, Mr. Wiggum testified that for the first half of 2018, Mr. Depp chose to take some vacation time. Also, he chose to go touring in the summer with his band, and then he did a film towards the end of 2018. With the publication of the op-ed in December of 2018, that would have impacted the prospects for that film that was done in 2018. So he chose to do just the one film in 2018. And then the impact of the op-ed on that film would have meant that it was not a clean period. You could not have looked at that film to get a good sense of what his earnings should have been, because he didn't have the chance to earn box office bonuses or profit participations.
Well,
so that's why 2017 is a much, much better year to use than 2018.
Well,
And
let's
also, when
break
you take
that.
a
Let's
look
break
at the
that down.
bar for-
I think you let's break that down a little bit. You said that 2017 was a much cleaner year, but isn't it also true that there were other reasons why 2018 wasn't clean? For example, the April 2018 article by Dan Wooten calling Mr. Depp a wife beater, correct?
That did occur that year, yes.
The June 2018 lawsuit that Mr. Depp filed in the UK against the Sun for calling him a wife beater, correct?
Yes.
And how about the October articles reporting that Disney had decided to move on from Mr. Depp and not cast him in Pirates 6, correct?
I'm sorry, what effect would that have had?
Well, it came before the op-ed, so it's another reason why 2018 isn't a clean year in your mind, correct? An article
No,
2
those
months
aren't the
before the
reasons
op-ed,
why.
an article 2
Those-
months before the op-ed saying that Disney had decided not to cast Mr. Depp. That would also keep 2018 from being what you would call a clean year, correct?
I've described the reasons why I believe 2018 was not a clean year.
Okay. Now, you're aware, as we talked about, that Amber's op-ed wasn't published till December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
So Mr. Depp could not have lost out on any opportunities as a result of the op-ed prior to December 18th, 2018, correct?
Correct.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2017 as a result of the op-ed. Fair?
Fair.
And he couldn't have lost out on any opportunities in 2016 as a result of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And so in calculating your damages, you didn't use 2016, you didn't use 2018, but you chose to use 2017, correct?
Yes,
And
for very
Mr.
good
Depp
reasons.
still made more in 2020 than he did in both 2016 and 2018 before the op-ed was published, correct?
Correct, and that's
Nothing
just
further.
based
Thank
on
you, sir.
earnings.
All right, redirect.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. You explained 2018. Why didn't you use 2016?
Well, first of all, 2017 was a more recent year. 2017 was a year in which Mr. Wiggum indicated that that was a typical year for Mr. Depp. He had a studio film, he had a independent film, he had an endorsement deal. 2016 is further back in time. As I understand it, his earnings capacity for that year would have been just about the same or even higher than 2017, because there was an endorsement deal that Mr. Depp passed on that would have been worth a lot of money, according to Ms. Jacobs. So 2017 made the most sense.
Why did you ultimately use the method that you did to determine the lost earnings?
Because it just makes sense. It's the correct approach to take. You're taking a look at what Mr. Depp would have been expected to earn in a typical year, and then you're comparing that to the period of time where you're analyzing following the op-ed from December of 2018 through October of 2020. So you're taking a look at what you would have expected him to earn. It's very simple compared to what he actually did earn.
No further questions, Ron.
All right, thank you. Is this witness subject to recall? All right. Sir, since you're subject to recall, do not discuss your testimony with anybody, but since you are giving expert testimony, you're free to stay into the courtroom, okay, sir? Thank you.
That was interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, hold a second here. Okay, that's basically the last clip I was gonna show. I don't know if anybody's like in here new. I can show like a 2-minute clip of his home if you want to see his penthouse in California. Let me know in the comment section. Or if not, I'm just basically gonna end this one here, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you everybody for being here. Thank you everybody for engaging. Thank you for the people that's in the bushes that was listening. And let me see something. Or put down here. Yes, that was his first real movie. Yeah, I totally forgot that he was in Nightmare Elm Street to the other day, and I said he was in Nightmare Elm Street. And fun facts is it was something about with John Depp always wanted to be in music, and I guess he took that role, to make some money. He had to pay bills, get himself a place or whatever the deal was. And I think Nicolas Cage was like, oh, offer him a movie. I don't know what movie it was, and he ended up doing another movie, so he ended up getting into acting. And look at him now. Okay. Sure, you remember, right? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, hold it just a second, please. Phone ringing. Okay, back. Phone ringing. Yeah, I totally forgot that he was in that movie. He definitely was. And I happened to watch Nightmare on Elm Street the other day too. With that scene in the bed with the TV and the blood. Oh my gosh. Thank you for the Purple Hearts. So nobody said they want to see his place. All right, so I'm gonna end this here. And stay tuned for some commentary. I'll be doing something Thursday night. I'm gonna put it up. It's gonna be about Tammy Terrell, and then I'm going to also do something Saturday. It's going to be for the men. Well, I mean, ladies, of course. Ladies and gentlemen is welcome, but it's going to be more for the men, about men being abused, because men do get abused. And my channel is about for men and women, not just women. So I'm doing something Saturday afternoon, but I'll set the time. So stay tuned and make sure you catch my community post so you can know and catch my alerts. All right, so everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging, and we'll see what's gonna happen, because there'll be some more of this John Depp. I think it's next week they back in court, or is it 16th, 17th? I can't remember what it was, but I will definitely be doing like showing clips and everything and talking about it and showing some other commentary. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody vote, and let's get into the vote. We have 10 votes. Which team? 0% for Amber Heard. Sorry, Blondie. And 100% for Team Johnny Depp. You got it, Depp. And I'm so proud of you, because you're speaking out for a lot of men that's out here that's being abused by women. And a lot of men look at y'all as some weak punks, which you're not. You're just not the type of dude that want to hit women. Sorry, that's just not your thing. And men, God made men stronger than women. And men know you hit her, you can literally break her in half. But you loved her, and that's not how you are. You saw your father being abused by your mother, and you was like, you're not going to follow the footsteps. And this woman took advantage of it because she knew your past. You opened up to her. And see, a lot of these manipulators, these toxic people, narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, histrionics, borderline personality disorder, whole cluster B personality disorder, when they find out this kind of information about you, they will use it against you. They come into your life first with the love bombing / idolation. They put you on a pedestal. They so charming, so sweet and loving and so attentive, and you be feeling like, hey, I found my soulmate. This must be the one. I can't believe it. Then, as time go by, they start devaluing you. They start putting you down. Didn't she start putting you down? Talking about your 21 Jump Street days is over. You washed up, has been. You're going to grow old by yourself. And then they discard you. Just don't want you no more. Just get rid of you. Then they start doing smear campaigns. And they'll try to hoover you to get you back. And she did a big time smear campaign, and it hurt your pockets, because this is what these toxic people doing. So hopefully the jury can see this, and they can see through the bull crap from you, Amber Heard. Yes, you, psycho chick. hopefully the jury sees through the BS, and Johnny Depp wins. But we'll see, because it's all on the hands of the jury. What we think and what we feel, we don't know what this jury is feeling. They all might be Team Amber, or they might be Team Johnny Depp, or maybe they confused. They don't even know which team to be on, but time will tell. All right, ladies and gentlemen, y'all have yourselves a blessed one and a great one, and thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging, and remember, date smart, not thirsty. You gotta go. Bye.